Training. As we start the live stream, we should start seeing everybody start popping in. I'm just going to go ahead and bring up our chat as well. With me tonight, I have Jamario and Christina, some new members of our team that I wanted to introduce to you all before we start going into all the Ask Me Anything questions we have. For those of you who know, I'm Jason. I'm the lead instructor at Dion Training, and we've been expanding a lot in 2022 and into 2023 by hiring on additional instructors. And the reason for that is I have a lot of students who ask me, hey, are you going to teach cloud certifications? Are you going to teach project management? Are you going to teach this thing or that thing or whatever the thing is that you're looking for? And the biggest limitation we've had up to this point was really we had one instructor, which was me, and I had a full team behind me helping with student support questions and video editing and production and all of that. But still, at the end of the day, I can only teach so many things, especially since the exams change every 2 to 3 years. And we have to refilm our courses all the time. So the only way for us to be able to expand to serve you better was to bring on other talented instructors. And that's exactly what we did. So this month, I want to introduce you to one of my new instructors, which is Jamario Kelly, which we're going to talk to in a second. And then next month, we're going to introduce you to Reed Biggood, who's one of my other instructors. He's leading up our project management side, whereas Jamario is helping me on the cybersecurity side and the cloud instruction side. So that's kind of the stuff you'll be seeing from him. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that as we go through here in the first 5 minutes or so as people are filtering in. And then we're going to start answering all of your questions. And to help us with that, I have Christina over here. So I'm going to introduce her first. Christina Luce is a new person here who just joined our team recently down here in Dion Training at Orlando, in our Orlando facility. And she just moved down here as well. She's our new social media manager. So one of the things that I have not been great at doing is being able to connect with you all better on things like Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and LinkedIn and all the different social platforms. Because honestly, it's just not my jam. I'm not a big social guy, to be quite honest. Facebook is probably where you see me interacting most directly, but a lot of my team works on other places as well. And so Christina's kind of bringing everybody together to start getting us a good social media strategy so we can serve you better on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that stuff, even Twitter. So you'll be able to get content from us in all of those places. So I just wanted to introduce her and say hello to Christina. So Christina, wave, say hello to everybody. And I'm going to turn off her camera because she's going to be busy answering chat the whole time. So as we start getting into our Ask Me Anything, if you have any questions, pop them into chat. We are monitoring both YouTube chat and Facebook chat. It'll come right into our platform, which you can see going down the right-hand side of the screen. And Christina will be throwing questions to me and Jamario to answer for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off her camera for a moment here. And as I do, we're going to talk about Jamario here for a second. So Jamario, welcome. Jamario is coming to us all the way from Sacramento, California. I'm all the way on the other side of the world, on the other side of the U.S., over in Florida right now. So we are 3 hours of time apart, but we're here together on this live stream using the awesome world of technology to bring Jamario to you. Jamario, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what your background is, and how you joined the team?
All right. Well, it's exciting to be here, honestly. Just if anyone loves Jason as an instructor, you definitely love him as a boss. I mean, I've never met a guy just is so great and just he really know how to bring the morale. Like I just always smile because Jason is here. When Jason's here, I just start smiling. But for me, my background comes primarily from the Air Force. So I was in for 12 years. I initially used to work on aircraft actually, and then I switched over to my cyber transport career field. And so I mostly focus on deployable networks, computer networks. So that's pretty much dropping us in the middle of nowhere in the dirt. And then we're setting up an antenna dish, getting information, starting up a command and control network, pretty much so doing routers, switches, getting all the configurations, computers, all those things like that. And then about 3 years later, I switched to a more stable communication network, and then we start focused on more air operations center. So that's when you get more deeper into the virtual machines, a lot more firewall, a lot more system admin stuff. So typically, I was focused primarily on network when I first came in, and then I switched to the again system admin network virtual machine standpoint. Because once you get with the big data centers and you got the server room right next to you, all the information is there. So now you're working on the networks inside the network. So the virtual machine, the virtual switches, stuff like that. And also have experience as a risk management analyst for federal information systems. So doing more of the policy level, that's where I kind of got my CISP. And that's when you're focusing more on the mile wide, inch deep. So knowing a lot and getting the policy guy, hey, you should be doing this. Compliance is mostly what I was focused on. But yeah, that's a lot of my background. But the truth is, I really started to love security once I joined and switched to cyber transport because I had to get Security Plus. That's the first thing you had to do before you could even finish. and it was fun. I don't know. It just made you feel like a hacker protecting against the hackers and all that stuff like that. Because I do have my background in software development, and I just remember me and my friends, some of the first courses we were taking. He taught me how to kind of like hack PayPal. So we would just do the Control U and change the HTML settings to change our bank account. Oh, we got $1 million in it now. But we wasn't really hacking, but we thought we was doing something. But that's kind of how I really started, with the standpoint of like loving technology. Cause like I said, I like to code, things of the nature. But all right, I'm talking too much, but that's a little bit about my background. And of course, if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer it.
Yeah. Jamario comes to us from the U.S. Air Force, and Reed, who you're going to meet next month, is also coming to us from the U.S. Air Force. I actually poached both of them from the U.S. military and brought them back over here into the commercial sector, so that they can, support you guys as we continue to do more certifications and training. And they're both great instructors. One of the big things I was really looking for was people who are knowledgeable, which is pretty easy to find. There's lots of knowledgeable people out there, but then it was also about personality, because I tend to be very fast and bubbly, and as you can see, Jamario is very similar to me, and so that was one of the things that really attracted me to bring Jamario in. So yeah, so that said, we're going to go ahead and answer any questions you guys have from the chat. And I did get a note from Christina, our social media manager, for me to slow down because I tend to talk really fast, and I apologize. I will try to slow down and talk at a reasonable speed for everybody. So we have a couple of questions I think that just came in. One of the ones I saw here popping up towards the top was they were asking about cloud specifically, because I mentioned we're starting to work on cloud courses. So right now, if you're trying to find Jamario in any of the courses, you will find him in our Linux Plus course, which is not a cloud course. Obviously, it's Linux course, and it's from CompTIA. Now, the great thing about that Linux course that we did together, that was the first one that Jamario and I did. I covered all the theory, and Jamario did all the hands-on lessons. So as you go through that course, it's me teaching you something like, hey, we're going to talk about the PWD command or the CD command or the LS command. And then in the next lesson, Jamario goes into a lab environment and shows you how to do all those things. So as you're going through the course, half the videos are fully hands-on and immersive labs, and the other half is me teaching you knowledge and theory that you're used to, with me in front of the big blue logos and screens and all that kind of fun stuff. So that was our first one we did together. The second one that we've been working on is CYSA Plus, which we just finished doing all of the recording and editing for, and that's for version 3 of the exam, which is coming out in May. I know a lot of people have been taking the version 3 beta. Your exam results for the version 3 beta will come out in May when the real exam comes out. And when the real exam launches, we'll be launching our new version of the course for that, which is CYSA 003. We've done a refilming of that. We've upgraded everything, done a lot of new hands-on stuff with that as well. Really great course. It's about 35 hours, really in-depth content. So I think you guys are really going to love that. And then what Jamario and I are working on right now, in fact, I'm almost done with my half of the course, and Jamario's working on his half of the course now, is the Cloud Essentials course for Cloud Essentials Plus, which is CompTIA Cloud Essentials Plus. It's CLO 002 is the current version of the exam, and that's the first cloud cert we're doing. It's a really good introduction to the cloud to teach you the basics of the cloud, and it's vendor neutral. So it's not specifically focused on AWS or Azure or GCP, Google Cloud Platform. But in every lesson, we do talk about all three of those big players. So if we talk about something like cloud storage, then we're going to talk about the fact that there is 3 types of storage. There's object-based, file-based, and block-based storage. And if you're using AWS, for instance, we use S3 buckets, which are object storage. We use EFS, which is file storage, and we use EBS, which is block storage. Or if we're doing Azure, it's Azure persistent disks or whatever it is, right? We talk about all those things to make sure you guys are aware of how those work. And right now, the plan is to move from those Cloud Essentials into Cloud Plus, into AWS, and into Azure are really the 3 places we're looking, specifically at the entry level. So we're looking at things like AZ900, and maybe the first level and second level of Azure, first level and second level of AWS is kind of the current plan over the next 12 to 24 months. So hopefully that answers your question as far as cloud. That's kind of the direction we're going right now. And the first one for that is Cloud Essentials, which should be coming out in late February, early March, just based on how quickly we film and get that produced. So that'll be the first cloud course coming out from us. What questions do you have over there, Christina?
All right. So our first question we have.
You have to unmute yourself first to be able to read it. Oh, are you? Because I wasn't hearing you. No, you're muted. Oh, I had you.
You blocked me.
I blocked her. That's my fault.
Okay. All right. Our first question says, are you still able to score a good job with no experience? I am a current grad student reaching my master's in computer science, but I'm also looking to receive the Security Plus cert.
Awesome, great question. I'm gonna let her mute herself and turn her video off again. And awesome. Jamario, do you wanna start on that, and then I'll jump in?
Sure. Well, see, I think at least from my experience of having a lot of interviews with employers, a lot of times, especially in a small niche like cybersecurity, it's not a lot of people that's really in it, honestly. It's so many times I've tried to say, even though I've had people, I was like, "Well, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm in the world of cybersecurity." They're like, "What's cybersecurity?" And anytime I try to do like a little short snippet of any type of information, a lot of people get very confused. So it's actually a small field of people that's really in the cybersecurity world. And a lot of times employers will take a chance on you with no experience because there's no one else out there, right? And especially those entry level positions, because Security Plus, honestly, for a lot of jobs, it's going to get you, I think, roughly like 75,000 starting out, for at least what I've seen. Because again, it's a very hard certification to actually obtain. So I think it's definitely good for an entry level position for sure.
Yeah, so I'll answer that a couple of different ways. First, you'd mentioned that you're in school working on your graduate degree, so you're working on a master's, which is awesome. The one thing you have to be careful of with a master's degree is that oftentimes it can price you out of an entry level job. Now, what I mean by that is you said you don't have any experience, right? So if you went straight from high school to college, you got a 4-year bachelor's degree, and now you went off and got a master's degree for 2 more years, you've now been in school for 6 years after high school. You're about 23, 24 years old, and you're looking to get your first job. The challenge is when an employer looks at you and you have something like maybe a Security Plus and a master's degree, they're going to look at that and go, this person has a master's degree, which most people, that means you have $100,000 or $200,000 in student debt behind it as well, which means you're going to be looking for a job making 70, 80, $100,000 a year or something like that in the US to be able to pay for that master's degree. And that scares some employers off. There's also been this shift recently in the last probably 2 to 3 years where degrees are becoming less important and certifications are becoming more important, especially in certain jobs. And the reason that this is happening is because of this big backlash against student loan and the big student debt crisis that we've had here in America. You didn't mention where you're located in the world. Based on the fact you're going for a graduate degree in computer science, I'm going to guess that you're not in the US and that you're outside of the US market. So, again, you want to check your local market and what employers are looking for. So one of the things I always recommend to people is the first thing you should do is go on something like Monster or Dice or LinkedIn and look at job postings in your area. Not because you're going to go apply for a job right now because you're in school, but by looking at those job postings, you're going to see what's important to employers. As you look at a job posting, for instance, the job that Jamario applied for, we said we were looking for people who had at least a bachelor's degree, had these certain certifications, was able to work full time, was able to work in person or remote or whatever those things were. And we said, here's the benefits and pay and all that stuff that we're going to hire for, right? And so Jamario could look at that and go, okay, I've got a bachelor's degree, but I don't have a master's degree. I meet the requirements. Or if this job requires a master's degree and he didn't have one, he might know that he needs to go get a master's degree. Or it might say, you need to have your CAS Plus. He doesn't have his CAS Plus, but he does have his CISSP. Now, to me, those are equivalent, and I could hire him either way. But in some companies, if they're a larger company, they wouldn't even see his resume because if we were searching for the word CASP and he has CISSP, he's not going to show up. And so those are the kind of things you have to think about. So as I look at job postings, the first thing I do is I look at what is the employer asking for, what is the required things they ask for, and then what are the recommended things they ask for. And I start looking across multiple jobs. And based on that, I'll start kind of creating a list. Okay, out of the 20 jobs I looked at, 15 wanted CISSP and 5 wanted CASP. Well, which one should you go for? You should go for CISSP then, right? Because 15 are asking for it and only 5 are asking for CASP, or vice versa, whatever that happens to be. Security Plus is a great entry level certification. And I could tell you, having worked over in the DC area, if you had your Security Plus, you could get a job making $60,000, $70,000, $75,000 a year as an entry level analyst. The problem is getting that first job as an entry level analyst is really, really difficult. There is a lot of competition for those entry level jobs. The great thing about the cybersecurity industry is once you have some experience, you immediately break through the noise because I can teach everybody on this call right now. We've got over 100 people right now listening to my voice. I could teach all of you to pass Security Plus in the next 5 to 10 days. It's what I do, right? That's not hard. I could put you in a Security Plus boot camp, sit you in a room for 40 hours, and get you your Security Plus. But will that necessarily get you a job? Not necessarily, right? And again, this goes back to where are you located, what jobs are available. And then this whole thing over the last 2 years with COVID has really just shaked everything up because so many companies move online. And then now we're seeing in 2023, a lot of these companies are going, we don't like this online thing anymore. We want everybody back in the office. And so some people who moved from New York City to Kansas and were working online for a company in New York are now being told you need to come back to the office 3 days a week. Well, if you're living in Kansas now, you can't do that. So those people are losing their jobs and new people are getting hired. So there's a lot of rotation going on right now. And then those companies like ours that are, almost fully remote, I can hire from anywhere, right? I'm in Florida, Jamario's in California. That didn't matter to me. I could still hire him over here because I didn't need him in the office every day because he could do everything over the computer. But if I need him in the office every day, he'd have to be over here, and that shortens up my pool of applicants. So those are the kind of things I think about when I start thinking about jobs. Just remember that no certification and no degree is going to land you a job. Those certifications and degrees are there to help get you through the filter and get you in front of a hiring manager who can then interview you and decide if you're going to get a job. If you don't have, if the job descriptions are saying must have Security Plus and you don't have Security Plus, you'll never get in front of the hiring manager. But just because you have Security Plus doesn't mean we're going to hire you. It just means we're going to interview you. And now we're going to decide based on your attitude, based on how we like you, based on how you present yourself, based on how you answer your questions from a technical perspective that can overcome some of those non-experienced things. So that gets us to the other question, which is that I always know is always the follow-up question to this. Well, Jason, I need experience. How do I get experience, right? So what are some examples of ways you've seen people get experience when they're running up against that wall? They've applied for 100 jobs and everybody's saying, come back when you have some experience, buddy. How do you get that experience when nobody will hire you? Over to you, Jamario.
For that particular question.
That was a question for you.
That was for me. I'm like,
I just went on a tirade, so I'm going to let you talk for
yourself. Okay, no. That is a good question. I think it's not even just with cybersecurity. That's with any career field. How do you get that experience? And I think from my standpoint, right, I guess it would kind of have to be, I can only use my experience because I'm not a hirer like you, right? You know more about that for me. And the standpoint for where I'm at, right? I'm starting off with experience, so I'm not even in the entry level position applicant pool. So, but I would think, at least just hearing from other people, is you would just have to kind of get into the know, right? There's a lot of one thing at least I realized from government contracts. A lot of times when they put out these contracts, they already know who they're going to hire, but they have rules and regulations that they have to put out certain people. So you have to kind of just go start shaking hands, right? You have to start going to different conferences, going to these events, and maybe you might have to even work for free. You might have to say, you know what? Hey, I'll work for 2 weeks for free just to see, what I can bring to the table, etc. Because it's really hard, again, like you said, with no experience, but also being knowledgeable during the interview, right? Like I said, getting that first filter and being personal. One thing I realized is people really care about, are you a fit? Not necessarily are you intelligent? Are you a fit? Can you work with a team? Are you able to learn how much motivation you have and how well spoken you are with answering the question? So be very knowledgeable with what you're doing. And you can get experience from my standpoint from a lot of just online type of tutorials and trainings. I love to use this site called TryHackMe, and you can go through and it has a lot of different walkthrough steps. Oh, if you're going through this particular scenario, okay, this is how you do a firewall, nmap scan, etc. So you can actually go through these scenarios and do certain things and use like capture the flag type of scenarios again, and just kind of showcase that information while you're going to the hiring manager. Because again, I think the most part, it's really about, do I like the person? Because even if you're smart or whatnot, but you can't present that information, it's just like selling courses or selling anything, right? If the product could be the best thing there is, but you can't advertise it, you're not going to get it. No one's going to buy it. So it's really about presenting yourself and learning those skills of how to actually go through the interview process, which Jason's creating courses for and already have courses for, right? And that's the biggest thing. How do you package yourself?
Yeah, and that's a great point. So I'm going to give you a couple of other ideas of how you can gain experience in the world when nobody wants to hire you because you're starting out. Okay, a couple of big things, right? Jamario is 100% correct there on what he was talking about, and you'll usually hear hiring managers talk about this fit as a cultural fit or behavioral based interviews. So when you go to do your interviews, there's actually going to be 2 rounds of interviews at least in most companies. One is going to be a technical interview, and one is going to be a cultural or fit based interview. And I will tell you, the technical is not nearly as important as the cultural or fit based in most organizations. And the reason for that is, even in my company, right? Jamario has a lot of experience in a lot of areas specifically on the system admin and sides of those things, right? But none of that would matter how smart he is if he can't present the information well so that you could learn it. Because that's what I'm hiring him to do, is to be an instructor, to take that information that may be written in a college textbook and bring it down to the 8th grade or 9th grade level so that everybody can get certified, right? And that's how we try to present information. So that cultural fit is really important. Another a great example, I've talked about this in previous live streams. My COO at my company, Susan, when we were hiring for our chief operating officer for the company, I interviewed a bunch of people. We narrowed it down to 3 people we really liked. Susan was not the most qualified technically out of the people that we were looking at, but she was the best cultural fit for our organization. One of the people was very uptight. She came from a corporate environment. She used to work for IBM, very suit and tie type of person. Everything was by the book, really large organizational bureaucracy. We're not that company, right? I've got 25 people on my team here, 23, 25 people right now. I keep losing headcount because we keep hiring more people, but we have about 25 people on our team. And having a IBM style mentality would not work well in a small startup like Dion Training, right? And so you have to get that cultural fit. The other thing we've had some people who joined our team that wanted to work in a remote job, and that was great. And then they started working the remote job and realized, oh, I hate this. I like being around people. I don't want to be in my office at home in my bedroom looking at a computer screen all day. I want to be around people. And so that would be a very bad cultural fit if you want to be a remote worker, but you're a social person, right? Or vice versa. You like to be alone and you're going to go into a big open bay office where there's hundreds of other people around. That's not fun either for you, right? And so finding out if it's a good fit for you culturally is really important too. The other thing, when it comes to getting experience, as Jamario said, volunteering is a great way to do it. You can work with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups, local nonprofits, whatever it is in your area that touches you, that you like. You can do that with. I can tell you, I used to be very involved with my church when I lived in Maryland, and I worked with them, and I did a lot of their cybersecurity and helped them with their networks and all that kind of stuff. Not because I need the experience, but I got experience out of doing that. But if you were somebody who's trying to gain experience, you could then say, look, I worked for this church for 6 months doing their networks and running their Wi-Fi systems and making it secure. And that's a good way to say you have some experience. Other things are joining blue team and red team competitions. There's a lot of them online that are free to join, and you could do them from home. And they're usually like a week long capture the flag type competitions. And if you place in that like top 5, tell somebody that in the interview, like, hey, I was participating in the 2022 Santa Claus CTF and I was 5th out of 5,000 people, right? That tells me you actually know how to do the job, even if you've never done the job before, because you know how to do all the different hacking tools and pen tests and all that kind of stuff. So those are other ways that you can really get yourself some stuff. So keep that in mind. Okay, cool. And then I think Eduardo has a couple of questions he's popped over to you, Christina, to say to me, right? Do you have them? No? Maybe. We're working on it. New systems we're working with here.
Mine's like not loading at all.
Okay. Let's see. Eduardo, if you can pop that in the chat for me. So I see one in the, I'm going to answer this one while we find those questions. Oh, you didn't get one yet, but you're just letting us know. Okay. Gotcha. So I have one here that says, can introverted people get an IT job? Yes, you can. Do you need to be, so it doesn't mean that you have to be an extrovert, but you need to be presentable and you need to fit. And then again, knowing yourself and knowing your work style is really important. If you're a really big introvert, I used to work at the National Security Agency, and in my office, we had 100 people in the office, this big open cubicle farm, essentially, where I worked. And we had a lot of people who were very introverted, and they kind of went in their little corner in their cubicle and sat down behind their monitor, and they didn't talk to anybody all day. They did just fine, right? But that organization is okay with that because they're used to that. If you're trying to work in a social media company that's really all about being out there and in your face, they probably want somebody who's a little more extroverted. And again, it's just knowing yourself and your style and knowing what's going to work for you and finding a company that matches you. For those of you who are really interested in the career side of things, I do want to mention I have a podcast that comes out every other week that we talk all about career stuff. We're up to episode 90 at this point. We've been going for about 2.5, 3 years. It's called Your Cyber Path. And if you go to yourcyberpath.com, that's YOUR, cyberpath.com, you can find that and you can find all the backlog of episodes. We've done full episodes that are about 40 minutes on ways to gain experience without getting a job. Like we're talking about capture the flags and volunteering and all those kind of things. We go really into depth in that. We talk about certifications, and all of the stuff we talk about there is from the hiring manager's perspective. It's me and my partner, Kip. Both of us have been hiring managers for 20 plus years in the cybersecurity world. And so everything we talk about comes from that perspective. I usually cover the government, military, and contracting side. He covers all the civilian side because he's been out of the military for 20 years and has done all civilian work since then, commercial sector work with banks and financing and insurance and sports teams and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that career side of things, definitely check that out. You'll find a lot of great information there. And we even talk about, fit-based interviews and the types of questions you should expect so you could prepare yourself, because knowing you're an introvert, there's things you're gonna have to overcome. And in fact, Kip is an introvert. I tend to be more extroverted, and he has still been very, very successful in his career. He's made it all the way up to being a CIO at financial firms and insurance companies, and now he does his own consulting business. But he's an introvert and he's made it work. So definitely check that out because it'll give you some great tips and tricks. Christina, you got a question now? All right, here we go.
All right, our next question is, I have a question related to pen testing and the Pen Test Plus course. Are there any
I
other
think you're muted because
courses-
I don't hear you in my headphones.
It says I'm unmuted.
Again, you are not. Oh, for some reason. Okay, there we go.
All your fault.
Oh,
Let's try this again. I have a question related to pen testing and the Pen Test Plus course. Are there any other courses I can take to improve once I finish Pen Test Plus, or other certifications that you or Jamario recommend?
Awesome. Great question. I'll let you go ahead and mute yourself and interrupt your video. And Jamario, I'll let you take the first stab at it, and then I'll give my suggestions on other pen testing stuff. I know you already mentioned Try Hack Me, so that's a great one.
Well, yeah. So for me personally, I just think it's fun to do those things, and I think real world experience is always going to be any type of certification. And because the truth is, those questions, and we have been a company that creates those type of scenario based questions, are going to be based off real world experience. And if you can do real world experience, like I said, like you mentioned, the different bounty hunters, right? I know Hack One. I think that's one that's very popular. Hacker One, yep. And a lot of companies, what they're doing is they're switching the model from regular penetration testing, and they're doing crowdsource penetration testing. So they're opening the door, saying, hey, anyone, of course, you got to follow specific type of guidelines and disclosure policies, but they just want anyone to kind of attack their network, and then they pay rewards based off the bounty and the vulnerability level that they receive. So as far as penetration testing, I don't have Pen Test Plus. I love to play around with it a lot, so it's hard for me to really say. Like I said, Jason knows more about that, but as far as getting the real world experience, you just have to really go out there and do it. Especially, like, again, they have a lot. Try Hack Me, it's like $10 a month or whatnot, or maybe a year. It's really cheap. It's
like I think it's like $99 a year, $10 a month, something like that.
Yeah, and they have multiple different types. They're just very focused on a scenario base, and they walk you through how to do different exploits, upload, doing metasploit, payload deliveries, going through hash dumps, all these different things, and it's going to get you ready for sure. But Jason will know more about these career path and certification standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. So when we talk about Pen Test Plus, our Pen Test Plus course does a really good job of giving you the basics, right? We're going to walk you through what does a pen test look like, what are the stages of it, what are the different tools, but we're not going to teach you every single tool, right? Our course is about 35 or 40 hours. And if I taught you every tool in depth, each one would be a 40-hour course. And there's about 100 or 150 tools in Pen Test Plus that we talk about. So you would just never finish, right? So what we do is we focus on, let me teach you what you need to know to pass the exam, right? So let me just preface it with that. That being said, if you buy the version of Pen Test Plus on my platform on diontraining.com, you also get the hands-on labs that we have that go with it, which is about 40 additional hours of practice. And you'll go in and actually do all that stuff in a walkthrough environment. So on the left side, it'll say, we're going to run an Nmap scan, type in this command, see these results, here's what they mean. And it gives you all that step-by-step. Try Hack Me is not nearly as guided as that, but it does a really good job of guiding you while still letting you explore. Ours is much more directive and guiding. So as you're starting out, I think ours is a great place to start. I think the second place to go is something like Try Hack Me, where you start learning through doing and start playing with all these different tools. The next step above that would be entering these different CTFs. And like I said, some of them have a entry fee of $5 or $10. Most of them are free, and you could do them online. And it's basically a big cyber range that's been set up, and you'll go in and try to attack it, find these flags, see if you can get enough points, and then win the competition. When I went to the CompTIA conference last year, I was speaking at the CompTIA conference for all the partners. They actually had a competition going on during that 2-day competition, and I came in second. And the only reason I came in second is because I was only there for 1 day and then I had to fly home, so I missed the whole second day of training. When I left, I was number 1. I got on a plane about 4 hours before the competition was over, and during that 4 hours, somebody else passed me by like 2 points. So I was a little sad, but anyway, but yeah. So there are competitions out there like that that you can do and participate in. Another great one out there is Range Force. Range Force is another great website. It's fairly inexpensive as well. Try Hack Me might be a little cheaper, but Range Force does a good job. They've got hundreds of different challenges, everything from blue team, red team, and even blue team versus red team, where they'll pair you off and say, okay, Jamario, you're a defender, Jason, you're an attacker, go. And you have like a week to attack each other and defend each other. So those are really fun and really good ways to learn as well. The other thing I'd recommend, if you follow me on Udemy, you're already a Udemy student, go and look up Zain, Z-A-I-N. I can never pronounce his last name, but if you type in ethical hacking and the word Zain, Z-A-I-N, he does a really good job of hacking courses, and all his stuff is done in a way that is very hands-on, very deliberate. None of it is tied to a certification, but he has like a course just on Nmap that's like 10 hours long. He's got another course just on Wireshark. He's got another course just on Metasploit. And as you go through these courses, he'll teach you how to do everything in a hacking from A to Z. And he's got one big grand course, I think it's like 50 or 60 hours that covers everything. And on Udemy, you can probably pick it up for 10, 20, 30 bucks. So it's a really inexpensive way to learn that. The other place I always recommend to check out is stationx.net. Station X like the letter, and then .net. It's run by Nathan House, who's another Udemy instructor who started his own platform. He's got a bunch of stuff on Udemy as well, but if you go to stationx.net, you can buy either a lifetime membership or a yearly membership for about $100 to $200, I think it is, and you get access to all of his courses. And so that's the most effective way to do it, to get a library of everything. And he's got things from web application testing, every single type of tool you have, from Nmap to ZenMap to Wireshark to Metasploit, whatever, SQL map, all that stuff. And it's all included for this one subscription price. So that's another great way to learn. And as Jamario said, hands-on doing is going to be the best way to learn this stuff. Start hacking. The other place I like, if you're looking for a completely free solution, is vulnhub.com. VULN, like vulnerable, VULN, hub, HUB.com. I think it's .com. It's either .com or .org. And they have about 200 different virtual machines up there that are all Linux-based that are vulnerable to some way. And your job is to go in and figure it out. And they classify these as easy, medium, and hard, and then they'll have a name for it. So this might be the Dion Training 123 box, right? And if you want to learn how to do it, you type in to Google Dion Training 123 walkthrough, and it would give you the steps of how to beat that box. But that's another good way to learn. Start out with the easy ones, progress up to the medium, then go to the hard. If you can do all those on hard, you're going to be a great pen tester. And again, this is something you can go to your employer or a potential employer and say, hey, I've done these 5 boxes. These are the type of tools. These are the type of exploits. I know what I'm doing. And then they'll be like, okay, I'm willing to take a chance on you and bring you on, even though you may not have years of experience, because you now show me that you know what you're doing. So that's another way to do it. Christina, you got another question?
All right, our next one is directed towards Jamario, and they asked, what's the best way to highlight self-taught experience on a resume or portfolio?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Self-taught experience. Again, I think it goes back to kind of what Jason was saying, right? Just getting very detailed about what you actually accomplish. And I know resumes should be kind of short, but again, you just gotta be very detailed. Again, the biggest thing is you just have to make it through the filter. It's a hard way to do it. There's really no one-way solution. And the truth is that, again, like you said, it's competition, right? Depending on the particular level, as you get probably more experience, is probably lesser competition at that standpoint. But again, at the entry level, I'm highlighting the self-taught experience is kind of tough, but you really just need to be able to get to that interview. Once you get to the interview, that's when you can really let loose, because a lot of times they're going to ask you scenario-based questions. Hey, if you're in this scenario, how would you accomplish this particular situation? And you say, oh, easy. Back in the day, when I did this particular captured flag example, I did X, Y, and Z. I use this exploit, I use this, or whatever. So the truth is, the resumes is just to get your foot in the door. But once you get there, that's when you really explode with the actual how you present the information is what I will focus the most on. And you try to blow away your hiring manager. You just have to. Again, it's tough. It's no easy way to do it, but you just have to get to the manager and then really let loose.
So I'm going to answer one thing on here as well as a hiring manager. I will tell you, for those of you who don't know or haven't heard me talk on hiring before, the average hiring manager will look at your resume for between 6 and 60 seconds. So you have less than a minute. Most of the time, you have less than 10 seconds. Now, how quick is 6 seconds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm on to the next candidate. So that's how much time you have to catch me. If you give me a 5-page resume, I'm not looking at it. I don't have time, right? I'm just being honest here. Generally, as a hiring manager, I'm given between 50 and 100 resumes I have to look through. And by the way, I'm not just a hiring manager. I have a job to do too, right? I have, whatever my real job is. And when I was an IT director, or, I was running a company or an organization that had networks across 6 continents and 1 million end users, right? Do you think I have time to really dig into every resume? No, because I had 5,000 people on payroll. Like it was a lot to get everybody up and going, right? So these are the type of things you have to deal with, and you got to go through quickly with these things, right? So most hiring managers, we're looking for keywords and we're scanning. So everything you write should be in bullets, not sentences. I don't need all the extra words in a sentence. I need bullets. I need to be able to read it quickly and scan your resume. I should be looking at the first thing I should be seeing is your summary. What skills do you have and what job are you trying to go for and why are you a good candidate? What benefit are you going to bring to my organization? Where have you worked previously? And then for each place you worked, for every job, you should have about 3 bullets. If you've worked there for more than 3 years, you can add 1 more bullet for every 2 years. So if you work for someplace for 5 years, you get 4 bullets, right? And when I'm talking about a bullet, I'm talking about led 500 people in delivering IT service management to 12,000 users, right?
Like military
Or what
bullets.
you did, almost like a military fit rep, right? So
Yeah.
in the military, we have these things called fit reps, which are your yearly evaluations, and they're all bulleted like that. It's like extreme leader, a great leader, and then here's why I'm a great leader, right? And so you want to do the same thing because you're trying to catch our attention. And the reason the military does this is in the military, when they go for promotion, they look at they look at their record, the last 5 years of their life, and they have about 30 to 60 seconds to decide, is this person ready for promotion or not? And
Yeah.
so it's kind of the same thing. So you got to
Sounds
get
close
used
to
to
that,
writing
yeah.
these things in very short, very to the point, and very, very quickly. When it comes to self-taught, being able to take credit for the things you know is important. No problems there at all. If you're like, hey, I've got experience with Windows Server 2019. I did it in my lab at home. Here's all the things I've done with it. Awesome. Only thing I'll warn you about is when you're putting down things that are self-certified, basically is what you're saying, hey, I have this experience because I've used this tool. I don't have a course to show it. Um, just be prepared that anything you write in your resume is fair game for me to ask you about when you're in the room with me. So if you do get to the second stage and you go from the resume to the interview, I'm now going to look at that a little bit closer because I've now decided I'm going to bring you in because I might get 80 to 100 resumes. I'm going to pick out 5 that I like the best, and those are the 5 who are coming in for interviews. And now if I'm looking at it, I'm going to say, so Jamario, you say you have experience with Nmap. Tell me a little bit more about that. And you're like, I've never
Exactly.
used Nmap before. I just wrote it down because it was in the job description.
Yeah.
Wrong answer. Go away. Right. So, it's okay to write things down that you've done yourself. But the way I'm going to ask you to prove it is probably going to be in a technical interview. That's most of the time I'm going to say, you're like, hey, I use Metasploit in my lab environment. I've done this, this, and this. Great. Walk me through what that looks like. Tell me how that works. Tell me what kind of commands you run. If you want to do a SYN scan in Nmap, what does that look like? Well, if you write down you're familiar with Nmap, you should know that it's Nmap-SS.
It's
And
just,
if you don't know that, then guess what? You're lying to me. And now I don't trust you and I want you out of my office, right? And so these are the kind of things you have to think about from a hiring manager's perspective. And then the other thing is, remember, as a hiring manager, you're there to solve my problem, right? My problem is I have a hole in my organization. I have work that needs to get done and I don't have a person to do it. So I'm trying to hire somebody that makes my life easier by having you take over those jobs. And so if that's why a lot of times hiring managers aren't willing to hire somebody without experience, because if you don't have experience, it takes me a lot longer to train you up and bring you up. I'll tell you personally, I've had this problem when I hired somebody like Jamario or somebody like Reed, right? There's not really a place I can go and find people who already know how to do online training like I do. It's not the same as somebody who teaches in a boot camp for 40 hours and talks to you for 8 hours a day. That's a different skill set. And so I specifically didn't want those in-person instructors as my person. And Jamario, for instance, I found that he had actually done some video before because he was doing a YouTube channel. And so that kind of goes like, okay, that's interesting. Even though you've never been an instructor before, you do have some of this video experience. You've been on camera before and you have some of this IT stuff. And so as I started talking to him, I realized he was a good fit for us and we brought him in, even though he didn't have experience in this particular job. And so that's kind of, again, going back to my hiring manager hat, he's solving my problem, which is I need more instructors to help teach more things. And even though he didn't have the experience necessarily, I'm able to train him. But now that I hired him on, I have to train him, and it might take me 3 months or 6 months to get him up to 100% to where I am. But it takes a while to train him to there, right? And so that's the same thing. If I bring you in with no experience, I now have to train you. And it's going to take a lot longer. And so on the other side of that is, as a hiring manager, I may pay you less because you have no experience, but I may be willing to take a chance, or I may just not be willing to take a chance on you at all. And those are kind of the two things you'll probably struggle with as a brand new person in this field. Christina, back to you.
It's like
All
the
right,
news.
our next question. All right, our next question says, what should I do after I get my Network Plus certification? Can I get jobs entry level easier?
Yeah. So generally, you'll see the three basic ones we start out with are A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus. If you mute yourself, you're echoing. A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus. A+ qualifies you to basically be a basic help desk technician or a field service person. So if my computer's hard drive fails or my monitor goes bad, you'd come out and fix that for me in a corporate setting. That's A+. Or I need you to install some new software, reset my password, that kind of stuff. Network Plus takes it up a level, and you start looking at the network as a whole. So we're talking routers, switches, and cabling. Most Network Plus technicians are really focused mostly on the network cabling and the infrastructure, and a little bit of switches, not nearly as much routing. Generally, you'll go into CCNA if you're going to be a router or switch
CCNA.
technician, which is Cisco CCNA, which Jamario actually does have, because
Yep.
he used to be a router and switch technician.
Exactly.
And then the third thing you go into is Security Plus, where you start looking at the security of the network and the devices, right? And so we go from hardware and software to networking to the security layer, and then we go into all the other cybersecurity stuff. So with a Network Plus, can you get a job? Yes. What kind of job would you probably get? Generally, I see a lot of people coming out of Network Plus with things like cable technicians, running infrastructure plants, which is all the cabling and wiring, whether it's fiber or copper throughout a building. For instance, when we moved into the new office that I'm standing in right now, even though I'm a network guy, I actually hired a company to come out and run the network for us because we realized that for me to do it, it would take a week. And for them to do it, it took a day with 10 people. And it was just a lot faster and less expensive time-wise to have them do that. And the people that were doing that, 8 of the 10 of them were Network Plus technicians. There was 2 that were CCNA folks that were kind of overseeing the rest of the Network Plus technicians as they were doing this. And some of them thought it was pretty funny that I was hiring them to do this because some of them have taken my courses. But it's one of those things. I'm like, I can do it, but I probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
So yes, we had that. And then, so that's one of the things I see. I see a lot of people will go work for internet providers. So if you're hiring somebody for fiber optic or cable modems in your house, they come in and run the network inside of people's houses. That I see a lot of people doing that as network technicians, or small office, medium-sized offices worrying about installation of the plants and supporting those plants, the network cabling plants. So that's kind of usually what I see. You probably won't stop with Network Plus. If you decide you like the network area, I would recommend going into CCNA next. Your Cisco Certified Network Administrator. You'll learn all the commands of how to set up. So in Network Plus, we talk a lot about things like 802.11, AB, G, N, AC, all that kind of good stuff. We talk about, all the different VLANs and quality of service and all that stuff, but we don't really show you the commands to do it on a router because Network Plus is vendor neutral and they work for Juniper, Brocade, and Cisco routers. If you go to CCNA, you're going to learn everything for Cisco routers. And so you will actually go into the devices and do things on a Cisco router as part of your exam. And so you will become a much better network technician if you're going to go to CCNA, if you're going to stay in that lane. Or if you just got this as your stepping stone because you want to go into cybersecurity or IT management and servers at large, then you get your Network Plus, move into Security Plus, and then you'll go into one of those domain type jobs instead. So it really depends on where you want your career to go. And back to Christina again.
All right, next question.
For the weather.
It says, I have a question. If you don't know anything about IT and you want to go to cybersecurity, what would you recommend me to start with?
Great question. If you are brand new, you've never done anything in IT before, except maybe go onto Facebook to watch this live stream. So you know at least how to get on the internet.
Buttons.
You at least know that. But yeah, I would probably recommend starting with something either like IT fundamentals or A+. Now, IT fundamentals is one we don't have yet, but hint, hint, it's coming. But A+, and for those who don't know, IT fundamentals is the most entry-level certification possible. You will not get a job with IT fundamentals. I will tell you that right now. No one's going to hire.
Probably not going to get that. Yeah.
Yeah, IT fundamentals was created by CompTIA as a pre-A+ course. And the reason they did that was that A+, for those who don't know, is broken up into 2 halves, and it has been at least since I got it back in 1999 with version 3, and we're now on version 11. So it will probably stay that way. But half of it is hardware, half of it is software. And so you take 2 different tests for that. With IT fundamentals, they put it all together and they add a little other stuff, but they bring it down to a lower level. So it's more about knowledge and getting introduced to everything in IT. So you'll learn a little bit about the cloud, a little bit about databases, a little bit about programming, a little bit about hardware, a little bit about software, and really see if this thing is something you're interested in before going for something like A plus, where you're going to be studying 40 hours for one course, 40 hours for the second course, and taking 2 different exams. So that's why IT fundamentals is something I would recommend looking at. Our IT fundamentals course should be out in the next 3 to 6 months. It should be out by the summer. It's one of the ones I'm working on right now. So that one is coming. That being said, if you want something that's going to lead to a job, A plus would be your first step. As I said, that'll get you into a help desk type job. So you'll be answering phones, resetting passwords, fixing computers, fixing software, all the basic level 1 stuff, right? It's kind of the first level entry stuff. And that kind of gets you into the field. The good thing about something like A plus is you're going to learn all about hardware. You're going to learn all about software. So when we talk about hardware, we're talking about things like, what are the different parts of a laptop? What are the different parts of your desktop? What is a graphics card? What is a hard drive versus an SSD? Which one should you use for which purpose? What is the cloud? Why would we even want to use the cloud? All that kind of stuff, right? And so it's really a good entry level thing. And really the big thing, that one of the biggest pieces of advice I ever got in my career was always think 3 to 5 years ahead. And what I mean by that is, you don't know anything today, which is totally fine. Everybody's got to start somewhere. And I don't know your particular case, if you're 18 years old, just got out of high school, or you're 60 years old looking to re-career, do a new thing. You could be anywhere in between. I've seen people do this career change at any point. But knowing that 3 to 5 years, where do you want to be? And hey, I really like this whole idea of being a pen tester, or I like the idea of being a cybersecurity analyst, or I really like the idea of networking. Then you can kind of know, okay, to get to be a network engineer, for instance, I'm going to need to get my A plus, my Net plus, my CCNA. And by doing those 3, I'm going to be making $50,000 to $75,000 a year in that type of a role. And within 5 years, I'll probably be bumping up close to $100,000 a year as a network technician. And knowing that and being able to plan out your path and what your certs are going to be is really helpful. But yeah, I would say the first entry level starting point would be IT fundamentals or A plus. And then the other thing I would say with A plus is A plus we already have. So you can go to Udemy right now or Dion Training right now. If you go to diontraining.com/Udemy, you'll see our links that have our discounted prices for Udemy. It's always, as you probably know, Udemy's always on sale. If you use our links, you'll always pay pretty much $20 or less for a course. Even if Udemy tells you it's $85 or $199, if you go to diontraining.com/Udemy, you'll get that discount just by clicking on that button through the course. And you can buy A plus part 1, which is the 1101 220-1101 is the part 1 course. That's the hardware course and cloud course. And the second part, which is 1102, that one is the software course, which focuses on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Even if you're not going to take the exam, going through those 2 courses and learning that information is going to give you such an introduction to the world of IT. You'll start figuring out what things you like and what things you hate. Because in A+, we talk about networks, we talk about software, we talk about programming, we talk about a little bit of everything. And so you'll be able to go, you know what? This programming stuff really looks interesting to me. I want to go become a programmer. Or I really like the cybersecurity stuff. I want to do more of that. Or I really like hardware. I want to stay over there. And being able to do something like that big, broad, one of the best things with certifications is they're big and broad. So you can kind of learn where you want to go in your career and then pigeonhole yourself from there. Long answer to a short question. Sorry about that.
Long-winded. You was going.
I get on a roll, man.
Hey, it was good information. It was good. It was good.
All right, next question. So this person said, I'm interested in how to get into IT federal contact jobs with no prior security clearance.
Okay.
Awesome. So
What's
this
your
is a big challenge. All right. I'm going to talk about this one for a second here, Jamario, and then I'm going to pass it to you because we're both
Okay.
come from a military background.
Yeah.
And this actually goes into the idea of earlier we talked about people with no experience. And where do I usually see people with no experience getting hired? It's government contracts. But it's because they already have a security clearance. And
Exactly.
this is, you're on the opposite side. You don't have a clearance and you're trying to break in. So what the challenge here is that in the US, if you're working for the government, specifically usually the DoD, the military, as one of their contractors or as a civilian, you have to get your clearance to be able to do the work. And the reason for that is, for instance, I used to work at the NSA, and at the NSA, we had 3 computers on our desk. I had an unclassified computer that touched the internet. I had a secret computer that touched all the secret networks called SIPRNet, and I had a top secret computer, which was called NSANet, that touched all the top secret information. Now, because of that, that meant I had to have a clearance for up to top secret information. Otherwise, I couldn't touch that computer. And even if I wasn't doing anything that was really secret, because I'll tell you, the top secret computer, it's a Windows machine, just like the secret one, just like the internet one was, right? It's not like it's a special machine. It does have some special configurations to help to secure it and stuff. But because that machine processes data that is top secret, like, where is the terrorist located, for instance, right? Anybody who touched that machine, even as an IT person, had to have a clearance to be able to read that information. And so whenever you get a job in one of these areas as a contractor, the contract company has to make sure they're hiring cleared people. If I hire somebody who doesn't have a clearance as a contract company, I need to hire you on my payroll. I have to pay you while I'm getting your clearance. And then once your clearance is done and you now said, yes, you've got a clearance, now you can go into the agency and work behind the computer and do your job. The problem with that is that clearance process can be 3 months. It can be 18 months. You really don't know.
Takes a long
And so
time.
me
Yeah.
as a company, if I have to hire somebody to go be a help desk person, a level 1 help desk person making, let's say, $60,000 a year, do I want to pay $60,000 a year and it takes you 9 months to get your clearance? I paid you $45,000 to do nothing for the next 9 months while I'm waiting for your clearance. As a company, I really wouldn't want to do that. So instead, it'd be better off for me to find somebody who's coming out of the military. Maybe there's somebody who was a Marine who was, a guy with a backpack and a rifle, going overseas, and he had a secret clearance or a top secret clearance already, even though he didn't have any tech talent. I can hire him, put him through 2 or 3 weeks of courses, and have him at the job, within 30 days. And so I saved myself 8 months of salary by hiring somebody who didn't know what they were doing, but had a clearance, as opposed to somebody who did know what they're doing and didn't have a clearance. So that's really the struggle you're going to have without having a clearance. And I didn't answer your question was, how do I overcome that? So I'm going to give you a couple of tips that I've used in the past that have worked really well. For those of you who've been following me for a while, I started out, back in the day up in Maryland, which was right in the backyard of the NSA. And I worked for a community college up there called Anne Arundel Community College. And when I worked there, we had a 1-year program that taught them their A+, Net+, Security+, and CCNA. So when they got out, they'd be set up to be ready to go take a job as an entry-level cybersecurity analyst. This was before CISA was even a thing. Now they actually added CISA into that as well, because that now exists. But back in 2015, 2016, when I was doing this, CISA wasn't there. So we did the 4 certs I just mentioned. What I always told my students, and what worked for a lot of them, was to go get a job at one of the government agencies doing work nobody else wanted. For instance, if you live in Maryland and you're near the NSA and you get a job as a janitor, they will pay you $15 an hour to take out the trash every night. But because you're going into classified rooms, you need to have a top secret clearance to do that. Because they have a lot of people who don't want to go get a job as a janitor, they will hire you on as a janitor, get you your clearance. That may take them 3 months or 6 months. Once you have the clearance, you're now in the building, you're working as a janitor, you're finishing up your certs. By the time you finish your year of college, you now have A+, Net+, Security+, and CCNA. And by the way, you now have a top secret clearance from being a janitor. Guess what? Those people were walking in the door making $80,000 a year at the end of their 1 year of college. So that was a way that I saw people kind of circumvent the system. So if you're near a government facility, military base, CIA, FBI, Treasury, NSA, they all need at least a secret or a top secret clearance. That's a way to do it. Take a job nobody else wants. The people who worked in the cafeteria, they also had clearances. So again, not the job you probably want, but it gets you to where you need to be. And once you have that clearance stays with you for 5 years. Once you have it, it's very easy to re-up and it's not a problem. I will tell you, for me, my clearance is no longer active because I've been out of that world for a couple of years now. And so if I wanted to go get a job, even as qualified as I am, back at the NSA, it would probably take me 6 to 9 months to get back in there, because I'd have to go through that whole security process again, including the polygraph, including all the paperwork, all the background checks, all the financial checks that goes into that. So it is a long and drawn out process, unfortunately. The best way around that is to work for the government in some other capacity. And then the other recommendation I would have is check out usajobs.gov, which is the clearinghouse for US government jobs that are civilian jobs, not contract jobs. If I'm hiring you as a contractor, I have to pick up the tab for your service, and the government doesn't reimburse me until your butt's in the seat doing the work, which could take 9 to 12 months. And even then, they're not paying me back for the 9 months I waited for your clearance. If I hire you as a secretary, a janitor, even a level 1 help desk person as a government employee, the government doesn't have that same stigma, and they don't care if you have a clearance or not. They'll still hire you and put you through the regular process. So going direct to the government will work out well for you. The biggest drawback to that is the government tends to pay less. You'll usually find that contractors will pay you at least 50 to 100% more in salary than the government. So where the government might hire you on as a GS7 making $45,000 a year, that
Yeah.
same job as a contractor might pay $75,000 or $80,000, almost double, right? But if you're trying to get in, getting that clearance from a civilian way is a way to go. The other way you can do it is a lot of people don't want to do this, but you can join the military. That's one way to do it. That's what Jamario did. He's got his clearance from joining the military.
Right.
His clearance
Yeah.
will be going away here pretty soon because he's been out of the military for a while now.
I got a good year. I got a good year.
Yeah, usually 12 months is when they cut off your clearance. So his
Yeah.
clearance should be going away shortly here. And then the second, another way you can do it is military reservists. I have a couple guys on my team that are military reservists, so they do 1 weekend a month with the military and 2 weeks a year. And by doing that, they are getting training from the military, they're getting their health insurance from the military, and they're working 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year over in California, and they have their clearance because of that. And so the person I hired, one of my other hires recently, he's on our development team. He actually had a job as a master at arms in the Navy, which is basically a military policeman. And because of that, he had a secret clearance. He now is working as a reservist and he's moving into the cybersecurity field in the reserves. For us, he's actually a developer. He's a coder. And so he builds our back end of our website. Enrique is who I'm talking about. Jamario, if you're wondering who I'm looking like, who is he talking about? So Jamario. Sorry, Enrique. So he's actually a reservist for the Navy. And so that's a way to get your clearance as well, as if you work as a reservist, the Navy, Air Force, whoever will give you your clearance. But that only works if you're 20 to 40 years old, in good health, and can pass the physicals and don't mind being a part of the military. But that's another way I've seen a lot of people break into that world. Any other ways you've seen, Jamario? I think I kind of probably covered them all.
Well, I think, the question, I'm not sure if it was specific to DOD or just federal contractors, because I don't believe every single federal contract you need a security clearance, because there's a lot of contracts
You're
for,
exactly right. You don't.
yeah, like federal information. So just say like the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Justice, all those different sectors, they have contracts with big primary contractors, right? Like Accenture.
Yep.
And so those developers that are on that team, they don't have, because you're not touching secret information. I mean, the confidential information, typically the highest it goes to. So you can be a contractor on the non-DoD side and also get a job that way. Yep.
Yep. That's a great point. So yeah, when I'm talking about the clearance levels, when we talk about unclassified, that's everybody. When we talk about no foreign, it just means no foreign nationals. So if you're from India, you can't get a job working for a company that's working on a classified project because you are a foreign national, for instance. Whereas if you go into your confidential and then secret and then top secret and then all the caveats, all of that is DoD side, military side. But there's another thing called public trust out there, which is really easy to get. And so if you ever see that says public trust required on a job description, apply anyway, because they can get you that public trust in about 30 days. So most companies won't worry about that. And that's what's used by Health and Human Services, Social Security Administration, and there's a couple other ones out there. I have a friend who works for Social Security Administration. He is a contractor for them, and he does not have a clearance, right? Because what he's working on is Amazon Cloud Services, and he's doing a bunch of back-end coding for them, and he never touches the information. He just touches the infrastructure, and all he needed was a public trust for that. And so there's a very easy way to do that. So that's another way in. You can still work as a government contractor, but not in the clearance space. I will say, if you have the opportunity to get a job with a clearance, do it. The reason why is once you have that clearance, it is so much easier to move to other contract companies or other government agencies because, like I said, it's a 9 to 18-month process. And so if I have a choice of hiring Jamario with a clearance or you who is better qualified without a clearance, I'm going to hire Jamario as a government contractor doing that classified work because it's cheaper for me. And so, keep that in mind as well. But there are lots of different jobs out there that you can get that do or do not require clearance as you're breaking through. Back to Christina.
All right, our next question says, what certifications will you recommend for GRC? Also, do you plan to release a course on Udemy for GRC and its career path?
Yeah, great question. Awesome. So GRC, I'm going to define that first and then we'll talk about it. So GRC is governance, risk, and compliance. And GRC is big business. It is awesome. So if you're not familiar with what those terms mean, when we talk about GRC, we're talking about policy and procedures. So Mario said earlier on that that's the last thing he was working on was policies and procedures, right? That's GRC. It's where you're running the scans of the network and then finding out, okay, based on these scans, here's the vulnerabilities we have, and here's how we're going to patch them and mitigate that risk. And so governance, risk, and then compliance is verifying you are compliant with the requirements you have. For example, we are a company that accepts credit cards. When you pay for your stuff, you use credit cards. Well, we have to follow the compliance requirements with PCI DSS payment card industry data security standards to be able to accept those credit cards and do it in a safe and secure manner. If we don't, we lose the ability to do those credit cards. So part of what we do is scans of our codes, scans of our websites, scans of our systems to ensure we're in compliance with the things we need to make sure we are meeting the policies. So that's GRC. To answer your question, yes, we have actually 2 courses already on GRC that are sitting on Udemy that you can take right now. And both of these courses are ones I did with Kip Boyle, who's my partner from Your Cyberpath. And one of them is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. The cybersecurity framework is all about GRC and how you do that in a large organization. It is not focused solely on government. It is also used around the world in lots of different places. And the thing I really love about that course is it's a rather short course. It's only about 4 hours long. But one of the things we do is we're not teaching you theory, we're teaching you how to do it. In fact, as I mentioned, Kip is a former CIO, Chief Information Officer and Chief Information Security Officer, and now he does consulting work. And most of his business is done around the NIST cybersecurity framework and doing this GRC type work. And so as we went through the course, we taught both the theory as well as what does he do on a daily basis in his job. And part of that course, in the bonus of it, is you can download this Google spreadsheet workbook thing that he created that he actually uses with all his clients that goes through and creates and walks you through the whole process of the 7 steps of the NIST cybersecurity framework and how to do it. So if you're interested in GRC, definitely take that course. The second one we have on Udemy for that is our RMF course, which is the Risk Management Framework course, which is also made by NIST. And the Risk Management Framework is used mostly by the DoD and federal IT systems. NIST cybersecurity framework was made to be for everybody. RMF was really designed for the government to use internally. So if you're working as a government contractor, government civilian, with the military, with the Department of Treasury, with Homeland Security, whatever, they all use RMF. And so that course was done in a very similar way. We go through all the processes, we teach you how to do it, and then we give you application of it. So you're actually learning how to do it, not just let's pass a test, because there is no certification for those two yet. That being said, I am working with a group and we are looking at making a certification specifically around the NIST cybersecurity framework so that people who go through our NIST cybersecurity framework course or other courses on that can then go take the certification and use that as a way to say to an employer, look, I know how to do NIST cybersecurity framework. And we're looking at making that as a foundation level, which is basically, do you have the knowledge? And then at a practitioner level, based on these scenarios, can you answer the questions and show you can do the job? For those of you who have ever taken Prince 2 Foundation and Practitioner, which is a project management certification, it's kind of built that same way. Foundation is ABCD questions based on knowledge. The other one is all based on case studies. We give you case studies, we give you scenarios, and based on those, you would then answer questions of what would you do in the real world, and based on your answers, you would then score properly or not. So that is something we are in discussions and talking about because we see that as a gap in the marketplace that currently doesn't exist. And most of the NIST cybersecurity framework practitioners are doing it based on a self-certification, to use somebody's term earlier on their resume, saying, yes, I've done NIST cybersecurity framework before. And what hiring managers are seeing is we really would love to have a certification. So we just say, yes, they've got that, put them into the yes pile. We'll interview them instead of having to go through and read through all those resumes. Because again, 6 to 60 seconds, if there's a certification associated with it, they can quickly match that on the HR filters. So those are the 2 that we already have for governance, risk, and compliance. The other one that I would recommend you take a look at if you want to learn more about it, even if you're not going to do the certification, my CAS Plus course, which is on Udemy and LinkedIn, domain, trying to remember on version 4. It's either domain 1 or domain 4. I always get them backwards. On version 3, it was either domain 1 or domain 4, and now on version 4, it's domain 1 or domain 4. They flipped it. But either way, that domain of that exam is governance, risk, and compliance. It's GRC. And we spend about 4, 5, 6 hours going through all the GRC concepts, including how do you do a risk assessment qualitatively, quantitatively, how do you measure risk, how do you look for vulnerabilities, how do you do assessments, how do you do compliance, what are all the rules and regulations you need to know. All that stuff goes into that GRC. As far as GRC, there's not really any certifications that are like, this is I'm a GRC certified professional. They don't really have that yet. It's more like there is a PCI DSS one. There is like CISP and CAS, CISA, and
all the
CASP.
CIS, all that. Yeah.
If you look at CISSP, CASP Plus, CISA, which is Certified Information Systems Auditor, that's another GRC certification, or CAP, which is a Certified Accreditation Professional, which is another one by IC Squared, who makes CISP. Those are kind of the 4 big ones for GRC. I would say that most people who are going to work in GRC eventually move into CISSP, and they kind of use that as their, yes, I know how to do GRC because I'm a CISP. That's kind of where I see it. I know you're a CISP, and you, one of the 8 domains on CISP is GRC, and so I know you have that background from that as well, right, Jamario?
Yeah. I mean, at least from an experience standpoint, I know the question was about, I guess, the courses, but yeah, a lot of it's just management. Honestly, if you like that management type stuff, that's where you're going to be at. Again, vulnerability assessments, going through. My personal fun part of that was the I guess one of the NIST controls was kind of RA5, right? Just vulnerability management, more so with static code because I'm a coder. Right, so software development, you actually go through and actually review some of the code that's being pushed through the different systems. And even though you can't, because the way the visions are typically set up, you're going through, you're reviewing the code, you're giving the recommendations to the development teams of how to fix the code. You're more of a recommended or person who advise and consult different things, because you got to think about, like, developers a lot of times their primary focus is to get it functioning, and security is typically last. Even when I write code, I think about security last. I mean, I'm just trying to get the buttons to work. I'm trying to get everything to flow properly or whatnot, and that can be the frustrating standpoint from being in the management standpoint. You can't do it. You're doing the recommendations, and even though you know how to do the code, sometimes they don't like you stepping on your toes. You can recommend, hey, look, actually, when you do input validation, all you got to do is create this function that removes all the colon scripts, all this stuff like that. It's right here for you. Like, we're gonna go through. We got to go through our dev, sys test, all these different. It's slow. So if you
Yes.
want to get in that world, realize that it's going to be a headache. It's going to be very slow. You're going to do a lot of BS answers, what I call it, especially in the government. So if you
I
like that
spent a
kind of
lot
stuff,
of
go
time doing
for it.
GRC, and I can definitely relate to
Oh my
that.
goodness, there's a lot of BS. I'm like, look, just get it done, because I just love code. So
Yep.
that particular one sticks the most to me. I do like the vulnerability management piece as well. And another thing that's very interesting in the vulnerability management piece is you have to really understand those scanners, right? And understand what they're presenting, because I mean, if you go through a lot of the courses that Jason creates, that just because you get a vulnerability saying that it's there, it doesn't mean that it's actually there, right? And so when you present this to these development teams and you're having these meetings and you're saying, hey, look, this vulnerability exists, and they're like, well, we don't think it is once we look through the box and it doesn't actually show that particular version or walkthrough or anything like that. So again, the biggest thing from that standpoint, you still have to know your stuff, right? You can't just be high level, I think, to a certain degree. At least if you want to be good at it. If you want to be good at it, you kind of have to know the particulars about the tools you're using, because again, you're doing a lot of vulnerability management, scanning, etc. But again, I just want to throw my caveat there. If you like pain and you like slowness, go for it. Go for it. But again, it's definitely, I think, top level overview. It helps a lot. You got to think about maintenance, Windows, systems being down, because you got to think about the business and certain time periods where they're like, we'll just accept the risk. We'll just accept the risk because we need to get this. We don't want to bring our production systems down. So again, if you're looking for a headache, go ahead.
Yeah, so the only caveat I'll give you on that in the world of GRC is a lot of people feel the way Jamario does. And as you just heard, if I offered Jamario a GRC analyst role, he would probably tell me to go screw myself, right? He doesn't want to do that, right? That's not fun for him.
Yeah.
That being said, a lot of people feel that way, especially those of us who came from the IT world, because we've always seen the auditors and the GRC folks as, oh man, they're here to make my life hard. They're not. They're here to make our stuff secure.
Yep.
But a lot of us just don't like it because of that reason. And so what you will find is that a lot of GRC roles are out there. And as an entry level person, you may have a better time getting into a GRC role than you would a true analyst role, like a cybersecurity analyst or a pen tester role, because everybody wants to be a pen tester. And so there's so much more competition for that. So one of the things that, if you're looking at this GRC world, I would look at, baseline is security plus. Second level is going to be something like CISSP or CISA or CAP or CAS plus or something like that. And then there's also these individual trainings on RMF and NIST and things like that you could be, NIST cybersecurity framework you can be looking at. But the benefit of something like that is that not as much competition, because not as many people want to do that job. That being said, if you are a person who hates spreadsheets and numbers and if you think back to the old days of balancing your checkbook, if that kind of stuff drives you crazy, do not go into GRC, because it is so much of looking through just documents and paperwork and policies and making sure everything aligns up. And so it can be a very boring job for some people. I know some people, especially introverts, who love that. And I will tell you, it pays well because not everybody wants to do it, and there's less competition. So it can be a really good area of the cybersecurity world. I've done it many times myself over the years. I will tell you, I don't really enjoy it personally. I can do it, and I have done it, but it is not my preference of places. That being said, my partner Kip loves that stuff. Like, he's an introvert, and he will just give him his spreadsheet and his findings, and he'll go to town on it. Right. To me, I'm like, I'd rather just go fix the problems. Right. And so
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a tension there between the developers and the system owners and operators versus those who do the auditing and assessment. So you'll see that with GRC as well. So not a bad area to look at, but just be aware that it may not be as fun as something like pen testing, for instance. Christina.
All right, our next question says, Jason, what are your thoughts on the ISC2 CC certification?
Awesome. Yeah. So ISE Squared, I actually had a discussion with them about a week or two ago. They had reached out because they wanted Dion Training to start teaching their stuff. And I decided not to do that, but that's okay. And that has nothing to do with CC. That just has to do with their pricing model and requirements and all the other stuff. And I have a really good friend who does teach ISE Squared stuff, including the CC course and the CISSP. And he's adding CCSP, which is the cloud version of CISSP that's also done by IC Squared, the certified cloud. I always forget the name of it. Certified Cloud Security Professional. There you go, CCSP. But yeah, CC. I think it's a great certification, and really what not CompTIA, what ISC Squared was doing here is that they are trying to get people into the entry market. So for those who don't know, ISC Squared, probably 80% of their revenue comes from CISSP. CISSP is the granddaddy of IT certifications. Everybody knows it. Everybody wants it. If you get that cert, like, you're not going to be without a job for very long because everybody requires it, right, at the higher levels. So that has always been their bread and butter. They had the CCSP that's been doing pretty well. They have the CAP, which is the Certified Authorization Professional, hasn't been doing really well for them. They have SSCP, which is basically a Security Plus level certification, which is the System Security Certified Professional, I think. I always forget the name of it. But SSCP hasn't really sold real well, and it's been out for probably 10 years or more. And now what they've done is they've added this CC. And the reason they did that was they wanted a certification that was very early, very entry level. This is like it's like pre-Security Plus. Because what they were seeing was a lot of people go to Security Plus, and then they would go up to CISP. And IC Squared said, well, if we can get something lower, maybe they'll come to us first and then go to SSCP and then go to CISP, right? And so they're trying to get people in their pipeline earlier. That said, the information you're going to learn is awesome in the course. Are you going to get a job with that? Hell no. No one's going to hire you because it's just like ITF, right? Great
Yeah.
course, great information.
Yeah.
Not really going to do anything for you in terms of jobs. That said, they've done a good thing with this certification by making it very low, very entry level, and very cheap. In fact, I think their first million they were giving away for free or something like that. They've already had like 100,000 people get certified, and they were basically giving it away to get marketplace dominance early on. There's another one that's coming out from another company, LPI, which is Linux Professional Institute, who we are partnered with, called Security Essentials. And that one is coming out this month. I've already taken the beta for it. And I am in the middle of filming a course with Kip Boyle for Security Essentials. And that one should be coming out in February or March as well. Very similar to CC. Basically, it's a good overview, pre-Security Plus, entry level, and again, very low cost. With LPI, I think their cost is something like $90 to $120 to get certified. But again, I don't think it's going to get you a job. But if you're like that person who asked me earlier, what should I do if I'm new to IT and want to decide if this IT thing is for me or the cybersecurity thing is for me? Something like CC or Security Essentials is really good to be able to go in, see if you like this, see if you like this whole idea of learning and education and testing based on these things. Because in this world, you're always going to be taking some certification exam. I could tell you for my first 5 to 10 years in the IT field, it seemed like every 6 months to a year, I was taking another certification to kind of build myself and get to the next level and get to the next level. And these are very entry level, so they're not going to be tied to jobs, but they are going to at least give you a good overview of if this is right for you. So there's nothing wrong with it. But if you take it thinking you're going to get a job, like, hey, I'm going to take this, now I'm going to get an $8,000 a year job as a cybersecurity analyst, not going to happen. That's not what that cert is designed for. It's designed to get people into the door and to understand ISC Squared as an organization and their career path, and B, what is this whole IT security thing about, and do you want to be a part of it? And I think, Jamario, you had just taken the Security Essentials as well, right? The beta?
Yes. Yep, I took
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and the thing I liked about it, versus the CompTIA exams is it was very straightforward. The way they asked questions was very direct. It was like a one-sentence
One
question with
sentence. Yep.
ABCD, whereas most time when I see a CompTIA thing, it's like, "Jason, instructor
Yeah.
at Dion Training wants to do this, and this thing happened, blah, 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 blah. So what's the answer?" And you're like, "Oh, what the hell
Yeah.
are they even asking me?" But
Yeah.
with CC, I found they were a little bit more difficult the way they worded questions because they do come from ISC squared. And for anybody who's taken CISP, they ask questions in a really weird way. CompTIA tends to be a little bit more middle ground, and then LPI with their security essentials was much more direct. CC is kind of somewhere in between those. Christina.
All right, this is the last question that I have right now. So if there are any burning questions that you have not had answered, go ahead and put those in the chat and I'll do my best to catch them.
Let's
All
think
right,
about
here's the
running.
question.
Um,
After being in an entry-level position, how much experience would you say is needed before applying for a higher level position?
So this is one that me and my partner Kip disagree about all the time. So I'm going to give you Jason's answer, and I'll give you Kip's answer as well. I will tell you in Jason's answer, 12 to 24 months is fine, especially if you're working as a contractor or you're in the DoD contracting world, which is where I come from. Loyalty is not rewarded in our world, and generally people will jump contracts all the time because that's how you get a bump in pay, either a pay raise, a new promotion, or a new opportunity at someplace else.
and breadth of
The other thing
experience.
is, for instance, when I was working at the NSA, we had a lot of contract companies. Like you said, we have, Booz Allen, General Dynamics, all these different companies. And if I went from Booz Allen to General Dynamics, I might have gone from making 100 to making 120. Where if I said, "Hey, Booz Allen, will you give me a raise?" They go, "Sure, we'll give you 3%." You're now at 103,000, right? So you'd be giving up $17,000 by not going to another company, and that's per year every time you jump, right? So I see a lot of people that 18 to 24 months, especially even for mid-level and senior positions, would leave every 18 to 24 months to go to the next contract, and they would bump up their pay. So that's one of the things I see. As far as an entry-level position, you probably want to be there for 6 to 12 months at least. And the other thing is it does depend on where you're working. If there's that culture of jumping places, and that's considered acceptable in your area and your region. I can tell you in the DC metro area between Baltimore and basically Alexandria, Virginia, that whole side of the country there, it's very common to jump contracts very, very quickly and very, very frequently. So it wouldn't be looked down upon by a hiring manager there. Now, if I'm in a different area of the world or a different part of the country where people value that loyalty, and they see that you've been jumping around every 6 months or 9 months, they might go, do I even want to hire this person? Because if I hire Jamario, he's going to leave me in 6 months, right? And that might be
Money.
that could
I need more
be the
money.
answer, right? That said, if you came in and you made it through my filter, and I'm sitting there talking, I could say, I see Jamario, you've been in this industry for only about 18 months, and you've already had 3 jobs. You moved every 6 months. Why? You'd be like, well, if you notice, I've been promoted every time. I went from help desk to networks to security to now I'm applying for being an analyst. So this is my dream job. I just had to get here and get you some experience to get here. I'm planning on staying here for a while, right? Like
Yeah.
this is the last step on my journey. Okay, cool. I can live with that, right? But if you were like, if you went from help desk position 6 months later to help desk position 6 months later to help desk position, and you're doing the same position, I may look down on that and think you're not going to give me any loyalty. You're not going to stay with me. That being said, in America these days, and I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I can tell you in America, we have not been valuing loyalty of our employees. Most companies do not care if you stay or go. You are a number to them, and you're only as valuable as the last thing you did for them. And we saw that very recently. If you look in the news, the last 30 to 60 days, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, Amazon, they've all been laying off 5, 10, 15,000 employees, right? Week after week. Every single tech company is doing it right now. Does that mean we have a problem in the tech world? No, it doesn't. What happened was during 2020 to 2022, everybody was hiring so rapidly, especially for a lot of these remote positions, that they started overpaying, right? And then when one company laid off a bunch of people, i.e. Twitter, when Elon Musk bought it, a lot of the other companies go, this could be a good time for us to reduce our headcount because there may be a recession coming and we don't want to be exposed to that. I look at Microsoft. I was listening to a story on the Wall Street Journal the other day about Microsoft. They've got like $9 billion in the bank and they just laid off 12,000 people. Could they afford to keep them? Heck yeah, they could, right? But they thought it was a great opportunity to get rid of them because Amazon just laid off 8,000 too. And so they're like, well, if we get rid of these 12,000, we might be able to hire people at half the cost that just came out of Amazon too. And so a lot of this is happening where there's a shuffling going on, where if I can fire somebody who's making 200,000 and hire somebody in who's making 125 or 150, I just increased my profits. And so that's what a lot of these companies are doing, because they were so bid up over the last 2 years for tech talent that people are going from 100 to 150 to 200 pretty quickly. Now they're trying to bring it back down to a little bit more to reality, which should be around 150. So you're seeing some of that. So I know I kind of went on a tangent there, but I thought it was important for you guys to know. But yeah, so that's the Jason answer. Jumping's okay. I'll give you the other side, which is Kip's answer, which is you don't want to jump too often, because then people can look down at you for jumping too often. And again, be prepared to have an answer of why you've jumped so frequently. But if you're getting for instance, if you're working at the help desk, you're making $14 an hour, as you know, and you've been there for 6 months, and some other companies offering you $15 an hour, I probably wouldn't take it. I'd probably stay there for another 6 months and go for a year and then jump to $20 an hour. But if you're going from 14 to 20, I mean, that's really easy to explain to a hiring manager. They were willing to give me a 50% bonus to go to their company. Yes, I was going to leave, right? And you would too.
Right. Yeah.
Are you telling me you wouldn't do that if I said, "Hey, Jamario, I'm going to raise your salary by 50%"? You'd be like, "Hell yeah, I'm leaving. I'm going to Thor Teaches instead. He's paying me twice as much."
And with Dion Training forever.
Any other thoughts on that, Jamario? I know I kind of went off on a tangent.
Again, it's harder for me to speak from the standpoint, because you're more of a hiring manager, but I just, from my own experience, it's hard to really put experience on numbers, because, for example, if we can use the military, right? There's a lot of people that have these years, because at least with the Air Force, right, you just get, for your promotion, you would get points for time and grade, or time on station, stuff like that, right? Just for purely being there. But we know on the ground, they hide people. We don't want them to work. We want to put them over here. They might not actually have any experience, but from a number standpoint, it seems like, they've been there for years. That doesn't mean they know anything, right? There's a lot of hard chargers that go out there and actually are on the jet, or in the server room actually doing the work. We always know it's a few people, when they say the Pareto principle, it's like 20% of people,
20% of people do
80% of the work, right?
20% of the work.
Exactly. So that's what's happening. And so the Air Force even removed it, right? They said, no more of this, we're all at square zero. And that made it more fair, right? Because we know the truth. People aren't working. So it's kind of hard, again, for me to really get an answer, because I know, because just how I like to work, I just love IT and security. So every day, like, I'm not working and I'm just reading about security, things like that, like different hacks, different breakthroughs. But some people, they just don't care. They want to get their job. They want to do a little bit as possible. And then we always know that from the standpoint of a workplace, right, and especially in the military, any organization, you don't have to be cybersecurity, right? We all know that your division is responsible for it, but someone's probably going to get most of the work done. Long as you guys get it done, that's all that matters. From a manager standpoint, did the job get done? Yes. Until they dig in the weeds, they don't know who actually did it. So it's really hard to quantify experience from a pure number standpoint. And again, like I said, it's just tough. I think there's no way to really ever, because like you said, when you're hiring, you're just taking a guess on someone. You're hoping that what they're saying is true, and you hope they're a good worker. You hope they're not lying in the interview or whatnot. But yeah, it's a very tough question, and I think, like you were saying, Jason, a lot of people, a lot of companies, they're not as loyal. And as long as you have a good answer, if you jump, I think that's fine. I mean, they're trying to get their stocks up. The market's down. They're trying to show profits. It's
labor.
Exactly, cut the labor. I mean, as soon as they, like, it's Google, as soon as they announced they let go 12,000 people, their stock went up about 5-10%, right? So it's a play to make more money. So I mean, I understand that for sure.
And the other thing I'd say is, if you go to yourcyberpath.com, which is our podcast, we had a guest on. His name is Ed Sipka. He was on twice. Once when he made the move from help desk into a cybersecurity analyst role, and then again 6 months later, he was in that help desk job for 9 months, and then he moved to a cybersecurity analyst role. And he was there for about 6 months, talking with his boss about getting a raise. Another company came to him, and basically he was able to say, "Look, boss, I really love it here, but they just offered me it was like 25 or 40% more money." He's like, I can't turn that down. And his boss says, "Let me see what I can do." And his boss like, "I can get this much to you," but it wasn't anywhere close. And so the boss like, "Look, I totally get it, dude. You got to go." Right. But the big thing is, you got to be able to tell the hiring manager why. And if you're at some place for only 3 months or 6 months, you better be able to tell me what you learned in that 6 months that was made you ready for my position. Right. Because generally, I would say in general, 1 to 2 years is kind of common for most people to stay in a job for 1, usually 2 years, maybe even 3. But if you're at the entry level, you might progress a little bit faster as you move through things. And that's okay as long as you can speak to what did you learn in that position? What are you hoping to get out of this position? And are you planning on staying here for a while or not? If you come into the interview and tell me I'm only going to be here for 6 months because I'm planning on get what I can out of you, Jason, get my certs and then bolt. They're not going to want to hire you, right? So some of those things you got to hold closer to your vest, but there are things that, it's what did you learn and what are you planning on doing while you're there? So, it really is one of those hard things to give you a definitive answer on. But yeah, it is one of those things that it is okay to jump around a little bit. I could tell you in the military, for instance, generally we keep in the military world, even for the military members who are in the uniform, they'll stay on station for 2 to 3 years and then they move them again. Because they expect that your first year you're kind of learning your job, the second year you're really doing good, and then you're getting ready to move on to the next thing because we want you to be diversified, we want you to get
Yep.
better skills,
Breadth of
and you move from
experience.
hardware to software, software to networks, networks to security, security to compliance, and then risk, and then CIO, and then you're a director, right? You kind of move your way through this pipeline. And if you just stayed and helped us the whole time for 6 years, in 6 years you're still making $15 an hour in the help desk. You don't want that. I don't want that for you, right? So we want to make sure you're continuing to move, but there is kind of a fine line. You got to kind of feel that out in your own organization how that works. Christina, I think you had one.
All right, next says, I'm currently taking Dion's Cybersecurity Plus, and I'm getting close to taking the exam. I would like to know where I can find labs/hands-on for the exam. Please advise. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. So CYSA Plus in the course, I'm guessing you're on the Udemy version, not the Dion Training version, because the Dion Training version already has the labs built in for you. The Udemy version doesn't, and that's a limitation of Udemy's platform. We are trying to work with them to get labs in the platform. Udemy has started building labs for certain things as a pilot. If you're taking an AWS course, for instance, there are some labs for AWS courses. We actually go in and do labs in the environment. They've done the same thing for Azure and AWS. They have not done it yet for anything outside of those two. As soon as they're ready to go to CompTIA, we've already told them we'll build all the labs for them and we'll do it. And we're happy to do that. And Jamario and I and Reed will be the ones building all that stuff for you guys. Unfortunately, they don't currently have that. So we currently only do labs on our site. So if you're going on the Dion Training version, our version of it is the same videos you get from Udemy. The difference is you also get our labs, which is 40 hours. You also get the official textbook, and you also get the 100% pass guarantee if you bought at diontraining.com, which says that you buy the course, you finish it in 60 days, you take the exam. If you fail it, you write to my support team, we give you a new exam voucher. So it really is de-risking it for you. The big difference there is Udemy, the video course is like $20. And the practice exams are like, $10 or $20. Our course on our site is like $350, I think, $350. But again, you're getting the textbook, the labs, both the videos and the practice exams, and you're also getting the pass guarantee. So it does cost more, but you also have that pass guarantee part of it. So that's one place to do it. If that's out of reach, it's a lot easier question to answer for pen test, to be honest, because there's so many good pen testing platforms out there, including Rangeforce, VulnHub, try hack me, just three off the top of my head. CISA, there's not really a lot out there for the defensive side.
Yeah,
So
more
the
for defense,
best thing to do is if you create your own lab, or as you're going through the course and you're seeing the tools I'm talking about, you actually use those tools too. So for instance, as I was refilming the new CISA version 3 course, I showed you, hey, you should go download Nessus, which is from Tenable's website. It's completely free. They've got a community version. You can download it. You can run scans on your network, see if your husband or wife's computer is secure, figure out what are all the vulnerabilities, go patch those, rescan it again, and get used to scan, patch, scan, because that's what you do as a cybersecurity analyst, right? That's one good way of doing it. Another thing you could do is set up Wireshark and start doing wire captures on your home network, and then test yourself and say, okay, I had my wife go look at a video on YouTube, right? And then I'd go into my logs and say, let me see if I can figure out what video she was watching based on the wire capture I did, the Wireshark capture I did. And then I would say, oh, honey, were you watching this video of, I don't know, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen? And she'd be like, yes, I was. Okay, great. I found it, right? So that's another way to do it. There are some CTFs that are focused on blue teaming, which is what CISA is all about. And so if you get into those, you can get some hands-on experience doing those as well. And those are free to join. I think there's a site called, it's like CTF Now or ctftime.org. I need to write some of these down to remember them because they always have weird names, but that is one that has like a list of every CTF out there, and some are pen testing, some are defense. And if you go in some of the defense ones, you'll get more of that hands-on as well. But like I said, the defense side is a little bit harder. It's more based on the individual tools. I would tell you for CISA, the ones you want to really get good with, Nessus or OpenVAS for vulnerability scanning, know how to run a scan, know how to read a scan, and be able to look at that scan and say, here's what a CVSS score is. Here's why this scan or this result from the scan is more severe than this one. Or this is what I would need to do to fix this scan. I scanned it and it said this using SSL. I should be using TLS 1.2. To fix that, I would go into Windows and set up this new cert with the newer version using this tool, right? If you can answer to that level, you'll do fine on the exam. Another one you want to know front to back is going to be Nmap. Nmap is big on both Pentest Plus and CISA Plus. If you're not comfortable running Nmap scans, you are not going to do well on those exams. So definitely download Nmap, run it. It runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac. You can run on any operating system you have, run some scans, do some stuff. You can use scanme.nmap.org, which is an open server that they allow you to scan to see what vulnerabilities exist there using the Nmap tool and some of the different things you have there. The other one is Wireshark, being able to read packet captures. So play with that one. So yeah, vulnerability scanning, Nmap, and Wireshark are probably your three biggest ones you really need to know, like forward and backward, pretty good. The rest of them, it's pretty much if you know what the tool is and you can read the output, you'll be able to get the answer. If I give you an output from SQL map, you should be able to figure out that that is from SQL map and that is a SQL vulnerability, right? That's kind of more the in-depth. And then if you have the video course and you don't have the practice exam course yet on the Udemy, I recommend buying the practice exam course. Again, you can go to diontraining.com/Udemy to get it. And I think it's like 10 or 15, maybe $20 at most. And that's got 540 questions, 90 questions per exam, 6 exams in there. And for each of those, we have about 100 of those 540 questions that are look at this log and tell me what's going on. Like, here's a piece of a log. Is this an SQL inject, an XML inject, directory traversal, or whatever else it is, right? And we've got all those. So that's another good way, and that'll give you practice for the exam, but it won't necessarily teach you how to do it in the real world. But if you're worried about passing the exam, that's definitely gold right there. Back to Christina.
All right. So our next one says, what feeder roles do you recommend for getting up to pen tester? Currently only have 2 months in an MSP for experience and have A+, with plans for Net and Sec+ to be taken soon. Looking for the right path to take. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to define terms first, then I'm going to pass it to Jamario, and then I'll jump on him afterwards. So you said MSP in the question. MSP means managed service provider, for those who don't know. Essentially, it's a company that does outsourced IT. So if Dion Training, we've got 25 employees, and we wanted somebody to run our networks for us, we could hire that person's MSP, and they would be able to remotely set up things in our network, be able to run our computers. If we have a problem with our Windows machine, they'll remote in and fix it, that kind of stuff, right? So that's what an MSP is. So that's why it's A+, it's hardware and software, and sometimes they'll do network as well. I think you're on the right path doing A+, Net+, Sec+. Those three are going to lay a great foundation for you. And then you're going to decide, am I going to go towards CISA or pen test? You want to be a pen tester. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a really fun career, and a lot of people want to do it. The one thing I would recommend you consider as you're going down this road is consider also cybersecurity analyst work as opposed to just pen test work. And the reason for that is that blue team, which is cybersecurity analyst, versus pen test, which is red team, there's about 4 times as many jobs for cybersecurity analysts as there are for pen testers. Yeah. So pen testing is fun, but there's not nearly enough jobs for all the people who want to do it. So there's so much more competition. I will tell you, if I put up a pen test job, I might get 100 people to apply for it in 24 hours. If I put up a CISA job or cybersecurity analyst job, I might get 20 or 25 people applying. And if I only have, I probably have 4 of these jobs versus 1 of those pen test jobs. So I've got more people applying and less jobs to give. So it's just harder to get into. That being said, if you're dead set on being a pen tester, do it. It's awesome. It's fun. It's great work. You want to work your way up, go A+, Net+, Security+, Pen Test+. That'll get your certifications that you need. The other thing along the way, participate in Capture the Flags, because that will give you bragging rights, and that will be able to carry over to an interview, especially if you can place in them. Another thing you can do is bug bounties. Nothing, as Jamario said earlier, bug bounties are everywhere. HackerOne has them. If you want to do bug bounties for the Department of Defense, one of my last jobs with the military was helping with the bug bounty program that we had set up there back in 2017, 2018, and that program's still running. So you can actually go to the Department of Defense. They'll give you a list of authorized sites that you're able to go after, and if you find any bugs, you'll get paid for those, as well as getting kudos. And so, when you're putting your resume, I want to be a pen tester. Oh, by the way, my fun time is I do capture the flags, I do bug bounties, and I've caught 5. I've been rewarded for 5 different bug bounties. I've gotten second place in these competitions or whatever it is. That helps bring your resume up and get you out of that noise of those 100 people applying for that one position. The other one thing you can do, if you're here in the US, there's a thing called Cyber Patriot, cyber, patriot.com, I think it is, or .gov. It's a program run by the US government that partners with a bunch of high schools around the country. And they're always looking for people to work as mentors and team leaders. And they basically, the high schoolers are going to be participating in all of these different capture the flag competitions as part of Cyber Patriot. If you go there as one of it's kind of like being a Boy Scout leader or a Girl Scout leader. It's kind of the same thing, but for this cyber thing. And if you do that, that's another thing you could put as, part of your skills section is I'm a leader on the Cyber Patriot team for, Dion High School with 20 members on it. And we placed third in region or twice or second in state or whatever it was. That will also help boost you because again, it shows me as a hiring manager, A, you're passionate for this career field and cybersecurity at large, and B, that, even if you're not getting paid for this, you do it anyway. And I mentioned earlier, Enrique, which is one of our web dev guys that's on my team. As I said, he was in the Navy as a master at arms. He did not have a technology background, but in his spare time, he was coding and he had his own GitHub and he had his own portfolio. And so when he applied for the position with us, we're like, you have no degree, you have no certifications, you have nothing here that says you'd be a programmer. But you showed me your passion because on your off time, every night and weekend, you're going and building your own programs and your own websites and things like that. And you had this GitHub that you could show me for it. And so that's another way that you can kind of stand out to employers is to say, look at this stuff I'm doing. I really love this. And even like Enrique, even if nobody was paying him, he was still programming because he loved it. And so now that he was able to come and get a job with us being a programmer, he loves this job, right? Because it's what he was doing anyway. So those kind of things that show passion really do help for a hiring manager. Anything to add to that, Mario?
Yeah, no, I was just saying for sure, passion is definitely going to be the number one thing. I mean, if you think about all the hackers that get, caught by, the FBI and get hired on, they didn't get hired on because they had Pen Test Plus or because they had CISA Plus. They do it for real, right? So that's the biggest thing is you just have to need that real world experience and those bug bounties and actually going out there and trying to do it, not really hacking people now in a authorized environment. That's just the best way to get the experience. And again, the feeder, like you said, Security Plus and going straight to Pen Test Plus, that's definitely going to be the best. And again, when you think about the standpoint, why there is more jobs for defense side, because technically hacking is illegal, right? So if you're not working for the government, you're not really government or pen test. And a lot of people again are going away from like having the drawn out process of hiring a pen test company, and it's just so many steps prior to even hacking. But if you open the door for a crowdsource type of crowd bounties or whatnot, it's a lot faster and you get the results a lot quicker, and it's probably cheaper and from standpoint because you actually pay when you get results, not just for doing it. And you guys have a great system and very few minimal findings, which maybe they already knew. But again, yeah, you just have to do it. Again, the top hackers, like the people that you see all the time, these APT threats in these, criminal organizations, they've been doing this since they were 15. They've been just coding and practicing, trying to break stuff. I mean, look at Mark Zuckerberg, right? Mark Zuckerberg. A lot of people think, he just started in Harvard or whatnot. He was coding when he was like 10 or 11, breaking firewalls and all this like that. And he built a company, no degree. He dropped out, right? So again, it's all about passion. You really have to love to do this kind of stuff. And then when you love how to do it, you're going to learn because you're going to keep going. And when you hit that wall of pain or errors or codes, you're going to keep going. You're not going to say, F it, I'm out. You're going to be like, you know what? I got to get this. And so again, you just need the passion, Security Plus, and then, Pen Test Plus would be good, but just passion.
Yeah, the last thing I would say, I think we may have one more question or we're wrapping up because I know we've been going for about an hour and a half. We got 2 more questions. Okay, so I gotta go quick. Christine's like, I want to go home. We're still at the office. It's almost 10 o'clock at night here. But yeah, so when it comes to other things you can do besides, bug bounties, capture flags, all that kind of stuff, another great thing that Kip always recommends is if you're starting out and you're trying to make a name for yourself, get involved with some open source projects. So, for example, Nmap is an open source project. Metasploit is an open source project, right? Wireshark is an open source project. And so you can go and work with these places, even if you're not a coder. They always need people to do testing. They need people to do examples. They need people to make videos. They need people to do documentation. And if you can get your name listed on their site as one of the contributors, like as a hiring manager, that shows me you're in this field to do something, right? Because you're working on something like Nmap, which is a huge program that everybody uses. And now your name, Jason Dion, is there as one of the contributors, right? So that's another great way. And they usually will take it because it's free labor, right? That you come on in, you don't code, that's fine. Can you document this function for us? Like, here's what we currently have. How can you write this better? So there's a lot of things you can do to kind of get your name out there. And the other thing that, Jamario brought up earlier was networking. One of the first things you said earlier today, about an hour and a half ago,
Yeah,
was,
shaking
it's
hands.
being able to meet people and shaking hands, because that leads to so many jobs that you would never get otherwise.
Yes.
I can tell you that there are several people in my company that the reason they have their jobs is because they met me someplace, talked to me, told me about the skill set they had, and I thought, I could probably use that person.
If
Even though
I
I
can
like,
chime in a
yeah,
second, go ahead. Yep.
yeah. So I'll tell you, one of the people on my team has a PhD, and she's our learning management person. Her job is to go through all of our courses and all of our practice exams to help us make sure we're doing things in a good way to help you learn the best. You probably didn't know we had a PhD on staff that does that, right? And that's what Mary does. And I was not hiring for that position, but she reached out because she was one of my students who goes, here's how you dig your course. Here's how I recommend you should do your course. And we're like, ooh, we actually need somebody like you. So we actually stole her from a university, and now she works for our team, and she's been working with us for about a year, and we're going through all of our courses. We're making, somebody asked earlier, practice. One of the things Mary's been doing is creating a lot of PBQs and simulations that we're going to be adding into Dion Training's website this year to be able to give you guys access to those, including things like flashcards and things like that to improve your training even further, including she's got some things like escape room games and stuff like that she's been building out, specifically around this learning and design aspect, because we don't want to just do something because we think that it'll be good. We want to do it because it's going to be best for you in your learning ability. And again, it's one of those things that she just kind of VFR, came in, and we're like, oh, you know what? You're right. We probably could use that. But it wasn't like she emailed me and said, hey, I'm looking for a job. She's like, hey, I looked at your stuff and I've been using your stuff and I used to get my certifications, but I think you should do it this way. And here's what I think you should do. And we're like, are you looking for a job? And she's like, I wasn't, but sure. And then we brought her on the team. So, sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Jamario.
Oh no, I was just saying back to the shaking hands thing, and you were using examples of like how you hired Mary. When I got my risk management analyst job, again, I didn't apply for it. I was actually because I love real estate, right? So I purchase homes and do all those type of stuff. And I was trying to sell a guy a house, and we just started chopping it up. He was saying, "Yeah, I'm in cybersecurity." I was like, "Oh, I just got my CSP, small world." He's like, "No way," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And then we started talking about. It's like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "Are you serious? You really have it?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, we've literally just started a company and we're looking for someone with this. I was like, oh wow, really? And so like I just thought it was just, a little BS or whatnot. And it was like, okay. But that ended up leading to me getting a job. He put me in contact with the actual owner of the company, and then a few months later, I actually got put on. So it was kind of a stroke of luck to a certain degree. But again, we're just talking about similar interests, talking about I got my CSP, but these buzzwords, right? I mean, because that's a hot button, CSP. That it's just one of them that rings everyone's ears. But again, shaking hands and talking to people. I mean, that again, this is beyond IT. Networking, period, in any realm is going to get you the best results over what they say your net worth is your network, or your network is your net worth. And that's just very true.
Yep.
I just
I
want to
did
put that
see
out
in
there.
the chat, somebody had said that our team doesn't reply to emails. If that's happening, it means that our system isn't getting to your inbox for some reason, because we reply to all of our emails. If you're emailing support@diontraining.com, we have 5 people on our support team that are student support analysts, and all they do all day long is answer whatever questions you have, either about the questions from the course, or if you're having issues logging into a website or getting your exam voucher or any of that stuff. So if you have emailed support@diontraining.com and you did not get a response, that means something is wrong between our system and your email provider. We've seen that, especially with if you have an MSN address or a Yahoo address. A lot of times they will mark us as spam, even when we're replying to your email. And then we won't even get a thing that comes back and tells us that until you email us and say, I've emailed you 5 times. Why aren't you responding? And we're like looking at our chat log that shows all the responses we've given to you, and they're not getting to you because your system's blocking it. So if that's the case, I think it was Amaka, scrolled off my screen now. Yeah, Amaka, please let me know if you're not getting a response by email. Post it in our Facebook group or our Discord channel and say, hey, I sent you an email. I'm not getting a response. And Eduardo, who is on the line in chat right now, he works on that team. And I could tell you that between him and Mazine and Crystal and the others, they do answer. We answer about 1,000 emails at least a week. And we have a team that does that 24/7 to help you guys. And they're spread out around the world between the Philippines, Egypt, the US, Puerto Rico, to make sure that we can cover you during no matter what time of the day or night you guys are at. So it could be an email issue. But if you hit up Eduardo, who's in chat, and give him the ticket number, he can definitely double check that for you. Back to you, Christina. I think you got two more.
All right, before we get to our last two questions, we have someone in the chat asking if you can repeat what you said about Nmap again.
Yeah, so I was talking about Nmap being, so I talked about Nmap a lot tonight, but there are two big ones I think you're probably either referring to is Nmap as part of the CYSA Plus exam. For the CYSA Plus exam and the Pen Test Plus exam, you have to know Nmap and how to use it. So if I tell you I want you to run a SYN scan with an operating system detection against this subnet, what is the command? You should be able to tell me. You're going to type in nmap space 192.168.1.1/24-SS-O or whatever the command's going to be and hit enter and then be able to read it. Or if I give you the output from nmap, you should be able to tell me based on that, this is the vulnerability. You have port 23 open, which is telnet, and that's super insecure. You need to shut that crap down, right? That's the kind of level you need to know for those two exams. The other thing I was talking about Nmap was when I was saying another way to gain experience is to work on open source projects like Nmap, like Wireshark, like Metasploit, because if you can get your name listed as one of the contributors, and that working could be coding if you're a coder, it could be testing, doing use cases for them, doing templates, doing video examples, doing documentation for their tech, for their online manuals, all that kind of stuff will get your name in there. And that way, when an employer's looking, you can be like, yeah, I know Nmap. In fact, I work on that project. Here's what I've done for them. I do all their documentation, right? That's going to really stand out with a hiring manager. So that's the two things I was talking about with Nmap. Not sure which one you're referring to, but one of those two is probably it. And then Christina, I think you have two more.
All right, so we have one question that says, have you heard of Garrison Technology? I started there last week and was fascinated by the technology. Side question, will you be at AFCEA West?
Yes. So first question, Garrison Technology. Haven't heard of them before. That's just because there's a million different technology companies and I haven't dealt with them. I don't currently have plans to go to AFCEA East or West this year. I used to go to AFCEA East quite a bit because I was out on the East Coast most of my career, between DC, Norfolk, Florida, even up to New York. So I did go to AFCEA East many, many times. I don't have any plans this year to go to AFCEA West. This year is kind of a difficult year for me as far as travel goes, just because I'm in the middle of moving the company from Puerto Rico up to Orlando, which we're in the final stages of. I'm actually in the new Orlando office right now. So that's been taking up a lot of my time. And then I've got a whole lot of projects that I'm working on right now with people. In fact, I'm working on Cloud Essentials with Jamario. I'm working on Security Essentials with Kip. I'm working on Project Plus with Reed. I'm working on... there's another one, IT Fundamentals myself. I'm also working on, I just finished up CISA Plus version 3. I've got a couple of other things, another couple of irons in the fire, and we're also working on an LPIC 1 course, which is Linux Professional Institute Certification Level 1, which is what goes right after Linux Essentials, which we already have and we've had for a couple of years. And people kept saying, when are you going to do the next level? And I just hadn't had time. So I'm partnering up with another instructor who's really, really smart on that field to come in and do LPIC 1, which is actually 2 exams. So it's 2 courses. It's a part 1 and a part 2. So I'm working on that. So I don't have plans to go to AFCEA this year. I might do it in 24. I probably will go out to Black Hat again this year, either Black Hat or DEF CON or both. And I will probably go to the CompTIA conference again this year. I generally go to that one every year because sometimes I'm speaking, sometimes I'm not. I think those are the only 2 conferences I'm tracking for this year so far. Actually, no, I was invited to another one recently that I just said yes to. I can't remember the name of it though. But I'm going to that one too. But yeah, so it's just been a very busy year. So I don't currently have plans to go to FCA, unfortunately. But if I do, whenever I go to a conference, I usually will post it in the Facebook group and say, hey guys, I'm going to be at, Black Hat 2023. If you want to meet up and see me, I'll be at, usually I'll just pick up a bar at the hotel bar or something like that and be like, at 8 o'clock on Thursday, I'll be sitting at the bar at the MGM Grand. Come by and visit. And I'll hang out there with a bunch of stickers and books. And if I see you guys, I'll hand you out stuff and we can talk and chat and all that kind of good stuff. And I did that the last time we were at Black Cat, which was 2019. 2020 got canceled because of COVID. 2021, I was overseas, so I didn't get to it. So I haven't been back since 2019. So I do plan on going again, but that's what we did last time. And it was a lot of fun. And last one.
All right, our last question for this AMA is, how do we prepare for the AI impact on cybersecurity?
Great question. Oh, I love AI. I love it.
Me too.
Yeah. So for those of you who have been sleeping under a rock and have not heard of openai.com and ChatGPT, I don't know where you've been, but you definitely need to go check it out. Yeah, AI is everywhere now. It's the big thing. And I will tell you, we are using it a lot in our own company as well. We love ChatGPT. But that being said, ChatGPT is a generic AI. We are actually taking that and modifying it based on our own training data to help us as we are building new courses, new questions, new student support systems, all sorts of stuff. One of the things that my CTO is currently working on is the way we write our exam questions. We've rebuilt our own custom system, and we have integrated or are integrating the underlying tool from ChatGPT, which is GPT-3, with our own custom training to allow us to be able to help us develop questions faster and better and in a more CompTIA-like way or CISSP-like way or whatever to match those certifications. So we are using AI a lot. But to go to your specific question, AI in terms of cyber defense and cyber attack, yes, it is a threat. It is something we should be worried about. I will tell you, we're just now hearing about it. I should say the world is just now hearing about it here in late 22 and early 23. That being said, I've been looking at malware AI since 2016, at least, when I was up in the DC metro area working for a bunch of different places. So it is something that's been in development for a while. It has just gotten a lot better. That being said, AI can develop malware. AI can also develop defenses, right? And a lot of people are worried about, is that going to take away their jobs? I will tell you, I don't think it's going to. And I'm not just saying that as a guy who sells you certifications to get jobs, right? Honestly, what we are using AI for is a lot of work that should have been using automation or AI in the past anyway. The difference is between automation and AI is the level of intelligence and the thought-provoking answers that it can actually give you. For instance, if you're studying for a certification right now, and I'll use a great example. I was writing my new Cloud Essentials course, right? One of the things I needed to cover in Cloud Essentials was, what are the 4 different types of models that we have for deployments? We have PaaS, IaaS, SaaS, and XaaS, which is anything as a service. So platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and anything as a service. Well, the first thing I did was I went into our ChatGPT thing. I said, write me a 1,500 word script that covers what these things are, including real world examples and how they could be used in blah, blah, blah. Right? I wrote my prompt and it gave me back a script that was probably an 80% solution of what I would have written anyway. So could I have taken that and just filmed it the way it was? No, you would have thought it sucked, right? It was kind of boring. It wasn't in my voice. It wasn't the way I normally talk. It wasn't the phrasing that we usually use, or even the order I would have necessarily put it in if I'm going to list out things. And so it doesn't do it in a training way. So I still had to use my brain to go and rewrite it into the way that made sense based on our curriculum and the way we like to do things. That being said, ChatGPT puts out some really good answers, right? And so it was a good 80% solution to start with. And so that's how I see it. I will tell you, our developers have been using AI for our programming for about a year now. There's a program called GitHub Copilot. If you're not a programmer, you probably never heard of it, but it uses ChatGPT, GPT-3 underneath it. And so as you're typing, it will actually start suggesting what the rest of your line should be. Almost like tab complete when you're typing a command in Windows or Linux, it does that for code. And so as you're writing code, it's saying, we think you're doing this. Here's what we think the next 5 lines should be. And then you could say yes or no, or you could change it as you need to. So I see AI as a helper for us as technicians and analysts, because honestly, there is no way that you or I can look through every single piece of a Wireshark log for the last 24 hours and find all the bad content. We just can't. There's too much there. Even if I split up that log and said, you take 5 minutes of the day and I'll take 5 minutes, the next person will take 5 minutes, and we did that across 24 hours, it still would be too much for us to do in a 8-hour shift. But by using an AI tool where it can go through and identify and say, this looks suspicious, I think this is bad. Now you look at it, human, and tell me. That's where I think AI is going. Same thing with malware. Yes, it can write new code, it can obfuscate code, it can change code very quickly. But again, if a computer can do that, a computer can detect it too. So you're going to see a lot of talk over the next 12 to 24 months over AI. Specifically, ChatGPT has been really big in the news with GPT-3. GPT-4 is coming out soon. And I can tell you, Microsoft just put another $1 billion into OpenAI as an investment. They really believe in it, and they are implementing it into everything they do. Their CEO, Sanjay, has already said every tool that Microsoft puts out in the future will have AI inside of it. So when you're using Word and the next version of Word, you will have ChatGPT in the background checking your spelling and your grammar. It will start recommending paragraphs for you or templates for you to use as you're starting to write things. All of that will be coming as part of AI. And it doesn't mean that we're going to be out of a job. It's going to be an assistance to us. It's going to be able to decrease the number of people that we need necessarily. But even that in the cybersecurity world, our threat has gotten so big that as we are adding more machines and more devices and more IoT and all that stuff, we're going to need more defense too. And so I see AI as a big helper, and I'm not afraid of it. I'm embracing it big time in my own business as well as in just life in general. I find it to be really, really useful. I will tell you, if you're using ChatGPT as you're trying to study for exams, keep in mind it's only been trained on data up through early 21,
21.
which means if I ask you a question about the latest features in Microsoft Azure as you're studying for AZ900, it's not going to have an answer for you. And that's the same thing I found when I was having it create scripts for different things as my draft, that I go, oh, that's not right. What he said is not right. Let me go change that, right? Or
Yeah.
the machine, right?
Yeah.
And Jamar, I know you've been playing with ChatGPT as well as you've been writing your scripts, and I think you've been doing kind of the same thing. Like it's your draft, and then you're
Yeah.
taking that solution and making it your own voice in the way you wanted to present it and teaching it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I love AI. Again, even from I love ChatGPT when it first came out, it was mind blowing to me. Right. I even have a friend. He's kind of like a professor, and he was like, because he works on a lot of medical stuff, right? And he was kind of like, man, this is crazy how it's talking about these different lipids and proteins or whatnot. And kind of knows this stuff. But then, what I like to think about is AI has been around since the 40s. Like 45, I think is when they first started doing AI. I like to follow this guy. Again, I'm big into investing, and they've been using machine learning and artificial intelligence since the 80s. Like that's how, like if you look at the stock market, a lot of it's built by bots, AI, artificial intelligence. This has been going on behind the scenes, and we just never knew it. Now, this is our first time being exposed to it and being able to. This first time it's available to the masses. We can say that, but it's always been here. And again, like I said, how I personally see it, it's a tool because now we have the resources to again, like you said, cut down on the amount of people that we're using on these specific problems, and now we could tackle other problems. Now we can focus on going to space, going to Mars, going whatever. Because again, there's an infinite amount of problems to solve in the world. I mean, you'll never run out of problems. And now that you're able to stop again focusing, getting an 80% solution on these problems that you're already doing, now you can put more people with ChatGPT or with another team to tackle another problem, global warming, whatever the problem it may be. Again, now we can tackle more problems, and we just have to focus on what we're doing less. Again, and then we don't even see the new jobs that are going to come from this, right? Like I said, back in the day, everyone was afraid when the car came. Right. Oh, what are we going to do with all the, the guys that create the horse buggies or whatever it is? Well, now we have an automobile industry. Now we have CD players. Now we have, brakes, tires, rims, all the accessory that come along with it. But no one ever saw it. No one ever saw social media when they were thinking about a big transistor trying to fit it into a computer. Bill Gates said we only need 5 computers for the entire world. We never saw this explosion. So again, I don't think that it's a thing that will never be replaced because it can get to a point. And now there is a position I think that when it hit the singularity, it gets to a point where we just can't keep up. But I don't think that personally, and again, I'm a layperson. In the near future, it's anything to worry about, but it's scary.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say about it is when you think about this AI, right, and how quickly things have been changing, going from GPT-1 to GPT-2 to GPT-3. They're already ready for GPT-4. They haven't released it yet because they're kind of worried about it, honestly, because it's getting really smart and it can do some weird stuff, and they want to make sure they're doing it in a thoughtful way that doesn't cause more problems, right? But even if we think about it, like for malware, right? I look at the code that the AI writes, and it's decent code, but it's not good code, right? It's not perfect code, and so anybody who's been a programmer can know that there are a million different ways you can solve a problem with code. And some ways might require 10 lines of code, some might require 100 lines of code. And a crappy programmer will do it in 100 lines of code. A great programmer will do it in 10 lines of code. GPT will probably do it in 50, right? It's kind of not great, but not horrible. And it's workable and it does good, but it's not perfect. And so I see the same problem with it creating malware or defenses where it's going to do good, but it's not going to do perfect. And so we still need somebody to be able to take it and make it perfect or make it better, right? And so I still see there's going to be a lot of benefit for us as humans, and it really is an assistive technology. I almost look at it like glasses. I used to wear glasses for a long, long time before I had laser surgery, and I couldn't see without my glasses, but unless I put something like this close. So the glasses help me see far, and I think the AI tools are kind of like that. It's going to be an assistance device to us, but we won't rely on it 100% because then you get to the dystopian sci-fi where the AI decides to take down all of our cars and computers because everything runs on the internet now, right? And I mean,
Exactly.
even if you think
Life
back, I watch a lot
3.0.
of sci-fi stuff, and if you think back to 20 years ago, when I started professionally doing stuff 20, 25 years ago, like the internet and cloud computing, that wasn't a thing, right? I mean, like when I first started, the internet really was like Yahoo was like the place everybody went on the internet. Now, who goes to Yahoo anymore? Who cares, right? I'm that old where I looked at Yahoo with like all the little directory listings because that was the first thing before Google was around. Google wasn't even out yet, right? And now Google runs the world, and Google's really worried about AI because ChatGPT has the possibility of replacing Google because it does such a good job of answering most of those questions. So yeah, I mean, going back to the original question, malware and defense, I think it's going to go that way, and there's nothing going to stop us from getting there. But it still will still be able to defend against it, and as a defender, we'll also program AI to defend against the bad things. So it's we can use it for good and bad. Yep. And I think that was our last question. All right. Yeah, and AI has a lot of false positives. So I totally agree
Yeah.
with that. And like I said, it gives you a good 80% solution, but it's not 100%. So that being said, I want to thank you all for sticking with us. We've been going for about 2 hours, so I'm going to let people go home. Luckily for Jamario, he's out in California, so it's
Right. It's not
only
too late.
7 o'clock there.
7. Yeah.
But here on the East Coast, it's 10 o'clock. And for those of you who are overseas, it may be the middle of the night or really early in the morning. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. And we'll try to answer what we can, throughout the day and as we have time. But yeah, we're going to be doing another Ask Me Anything next month. Our plan is to do one of these per month. Now that we have our social media person here to hold my feet to the fire, and next month it'll be myself, and I'll be bringing in my other new instructor, which is Reed. He focuses on data analysis. So he did our Data Plus course with us, and he also did all of our project management stuff. So he has just refilmed all of our Prince 2 Foundation and Prince 2 Practitioner courses, which are going live this month. And him and I are right now filming our new Project Plus course. For those of you who are in WGU and have to take that as part of your degree, you'll be very happy. We are finally doing Project Plus. I've gotten so many emails from my WGU students asking for that over the last 3 years, and I just hadn't had time. So Reed and I are going to be doing that one together, and that should be coming out in the next 2 to 3 months. So yeah, lots of progress, lots of stuff going on. We're continuing to grow. You will see that last year it was kind of a slow year for us as we were kind of getting our feet under us, doing all these new hires. Now that we have everybody, you're going to start seeing a lot of stuff coming out really quick. The one thing I would tell you is, remember, you don't need every certification. We do a lot of certifications. Right now, we've got 43 courses as of right now. You don't need all 43 of them. There's probably 3 to 5 key certifications that you need for your job and your career path. And that's why a lot of the questions we answered earlier, like, I want to be a pen tester. What is the 3 to 5 that I need? That's really important. The reason I teach so many things is because a lot of you are on different career paths for different things. If you want to be an IT project manager, going through Project Plus, going through, PMP, going through Prince 2 is probably useful for you. If you're a cybersecurity analyst, you probably don't care about Project Plus, right? So it does depend on you and what you need, but that's why we have so much. And that's why we are continuing to expand with new instructors and new verticals based on those career paths. Right now, our 3 basic career paths are cybersecurity with our CompTIA line of products and Linux products, our IT service management, which is mostly our idle stuff, and then our project management, which is Project Plus, Prince 2, that kind of stuff. So that's what you'll see as we continue to go out. And now we're adding this other vertical of cloud that we're starting out right now with Jamario with Cloud Essentials, and you'll be seeing that in the next 4 to 8 weeks or so. So we'll make sure you guys know about that. And yeah, other than that, have a great night, and we will see you next month. And keep your eye out in the email for the next live stream. Thanks.
All right, guys. See you